with a roll call vote. So just shout here if you are here. Member Bogus? Yep. Member Hall? Yes. Member Booth? Here. Member Brenton? Here. Member Davis? Member Earl? Yes. Member Green? Vice Chair Bollinger?
Here.
Member Longacre? Here. I am here. Member Kelly? Here. Member Carey? Member Lear? Member Reel? Vice Chair Wood?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. Okay. I believe some people are here. Do we have any online?
No, but Real and Carrie will be late.
Late online or late here? Okay, late here. Okay. So we'll keep an eye out for incoming board members. And I know that Member Davis is in the building somewhere as well. Okay. So we have agenda item 5 for today is Utah School for the Deaf and the Blind. And we have some action items here. 5.1 is an action item for the SHINE program. And so we are going to ask Assistant Superintendent Michelle Tanner to tee us up here.
Okay. So if we look back on that item, you can see we've sent our policy. Our policy is intended to meet the needs of the SHINE program as it was established by the Board of Education. So we are going to be allocated $114,900 for our teachers. And we have been tasked with, we need to decide which categories. We can only pick we only picked 3. Mm-hmm. And we decided to be as broad as we could to encompass as many teachers and benefit as many teachers as possible. We chose preschool special education, professionally licensed, all of these are professionally licensed, preschool special education, school-age special education, and deaf education teachers. So if they have them, they would qualify for the funding. And then we would divide it amongst those teachers, $114,900, which isn't tons of money, but it is, and it's adjusted to their FTE if they're 0.5 or 0.8. That's kind of the general synopsis of the policy, which is also in your backup docs right there. And we did model the policy after others throughout the state.
Thank you. There's no motion yet, but can I just ask a question? How many do you anticipate qualifying for this, right? If you have $114,000 and you have 114 teachers qualify, right? What do you anticipate?
It was a small number. We think it ended up being about $500. It was not much.
Or the $500 as far as per teacher, but I don't know that we have the exact amount of teachers, number of teachers that would be eligible for it.
There's a spreadsheet that we have with the names.
We do that. One of the issues that we have at USDB is that we don't have a teaching position that is not a hard to fill position. So looking through, we did, as Michelle said, we did try to capture the majority of the teachers there, but it did leave some of the professionals that are on educator contracts off, even though they are in extremely hard to fill positions. But I wanted to make that clear that we only chose the 3, but we don't have a teaching position that's not a hard. In other districts, it would be considered a very hard to fill position.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions. I would entertain a motion if we have any board members up to it. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make a motion that the board adopt the USDB Highly Needed Education Salary Supplement SHINE program as outlined in the policy.
Do we have a second? Thank you. So the motion before the board is that the board adopt the USDB Highly Needed Education Salary Supplement SHINE program as outlined in the policy. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That passes. 12 in favor, 1 abstention. That abstention coming from Member Reel. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 5.2, approval of school calendars. Back to you, Assistant Superintendent Tanner. Well, both of you are on here. Tag
Both of
team
us.
it. Let's do
So,
this.
okay, we were, this year, with all the things that are going to be added as an added burden to the teachers, we went about looking at making sure they had enough days to accommodate all the added burden that they're going to have. And so we were talking about, okay, we're going to give them up to the amount, which is 176 days. In years past, we followed it strictly to what the other district calendars are. And many of the other district calendars have done this, have done more of those days. But we would add them back and give our teachers more days, like 178 days. So this year, though, in order to accommodate that, as we were looking through that, we recognized we need to be approving our calendars through the board, since that's what it requires. When you do 4 days, it requires a board approval. So that's why they're here. And we wanted to show you what those were. We have our teachers on a 183-day contract. We typically have 3 days that you can see on the screen, actually. 1 day for classroom prep, that's setting their room up. 1 day for an opening meeting, which we did yesterday, and 1 day for an end of year. So that leaves 180 school days for students. Other districts may have 189 days, 185, 186. We have 183. In order to do that, we have listed that these are the dates. We have different calendars between the deaf school and the blind school. So there'll be 176 days for the deaf school, 176 days for the blind school. And in addition to that, because we're always complex at USDB, we have the Jean Massou School, which follows is Granite's calendars. So they're not exactly all off on the exact same day. So it's a complicated process developing these calendars. So Salt Lake has theirs that they follow Granite School District as much as possible.
As a Salt Lake campus.
Salt Lake campus. Salt Lake campus does that, but on the screen, I was just giving them context on the screen. KBS, that's our Ogden campus. That includes the blind school, also has one on their campus. But there's EDS, that's Springville, and they follow NEBO's calendar. And then we have SUSD, which follows Washington's calendar. Beyond that, the School for the Deaf and the School for the Blind have different needs. So the School for the Deaf has 176 days, but they may be different than the School for the Blinds because, for example, they have an outreach conference they have to do that we don't have to do that's for blind, visually impaired. So those days may vary. Hence, you're seeing a lot of calendars in front of you. So you should see, you're going to see 4 for the School for the Deaf and 3 for the School for the Blind. The ones on the screen are the School for the Blind. I had mine sent, somehow those got lost when we put this on the agenda, but there are, I think there's also AB days calendars as well for students that are in high school and secondary. So we're just seeking permission to be able to do the 176 instructional days for students.
Okay. Seeing no questions come from the board. Oh, I've got Member Booth and Member Earl.
I'm just ready to do a motion whenever you're ready.
I'll put you in the queue if that's okay, and then Member Earl will ask her question.
Yeah, just checking with our Assistant Attorney General here. If we go less than 180, don't we have to get a waiver, not just approval? Am I right on that or not? Is this the process? Yeah.
Waiver applications need to be submitted with, there's like a certain set, it's defined in R 277-121 with specific data, and it goes through Law and Licensing Committee.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why if we're doing a waiver, we've got to actually go through the waiver process.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had
No.
thought that it would just needed board approval, but if that's different, then we need to,
Well, will you
of
just
course,
check
follow
and
that.
see? Maybe we can come back to this, let AG Bill just maybe do some double checks. And I think there's so many days that you can do for, like there's 4 days or something you can do, which would then count for your 180. So I just want to make sure what we're doing, are we within the,
I believe we're
90.
covered.
I just want to make
Yeah.
sure so that if we're asking for, because we're asking for a waiver, is that really what we're asking for? Because if that, there's a different process. But if we're asking to approve a calendar and yet it falls with the provisions of current code, then
Understood.
we're good.
Yeah, and that is the recommended motion. Is we're not looking for a waiver here. The recommended motion you can see on the screen that the board approve the school calendars.
Okay.
And
We just
so,
had
yeah.
used waivers several times, so that's why I wanted just clarification.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
the
I mean,
waiver
that's
waiver
fine if
process,
we're within
yeah.
our laws and policies and stuff.
Okay.
I have an answer. So 53F-2-102, subsection 4 allows LEA governing boards to reallocate up to 32 instructional hours or 4 school days within that 180 for teacher preparation or development.
Back to you, Member Booth.
I move that the board approve the school calendars for the Utah School of the Blind and the Utah School for the Deaf for all of the campuses that are listed in our backup. And there are more than just Ogden, Salt Lake City, and Springville. We have those additional calendars that were emailed to us later in the week. So I move to approve all of the school calendars for Utah School of the Blind and the Deaf.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Seconded. Okay, Member Bogus?
I just want to make sure that if those are not in backup, we can actually do this per OPMA.
Were
I know
those
we've seen them, but they're not technically on the public record. We're approving something that we didn't include a public copy of. I don't know if that's even making sense to you. Did I articulate that in a way that you understand? Sorry, my mic is on and I'm on camera.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're approving all campuses. Michelle, or Ashley, I don't know if that's if that's a concern here or applicable. I guess the question that Member Bogus is asking is, have we posted everything that that we're asking to vote on? Has it been made public? Or does it need to be? I mean, that's not a question for you, Ashley, but does it need to be, or can we say, because we are approving the school calendar for the Utah School for the Deaf and for the Blind, and you have you've provided us with your calendars, right? So we're not approving other schools' calendar. You've made up your calendar based on other schools, but we're not approving those. We're approving yours. Is that correct? Okay. So we are in order here. So the motion then is that the board, yeah, thank you for checking. The board approve the school calendars for the Utah School of the Blind and for the Deaf, USDB, campuses in Ogden, Salt Lake, and Springville. Let's go ahead and vote. And that passes unanimously with 2 absent. Let's move to agenda item 5.3. Action item, Wasatch Transportation Contract Amendment. And again, Assistant Superintendents Tanner and Patton.
All right, well, the Wasatch contract each year has in the contract that each year it increases by 2.5%. It's an annual increase on the contract. So you can see in the backup docs what the basic routes changes to, like 371, 94 cents, that's the ones we're looking at. And so this is in accordance with the contract that we have with Wasatch, that each year there is an increase, and this is the 2.5. It's on the screen.
Thank you. Any questions from board members or motion that could be entertained? Not yet. Let's get some.
I'm happy to make the motion, I just can't read it.
Okay.
What does it say?
How's that?
I move that the board approve the Wasatch Transportation Contract Amendment.
We have a second? Okay. It's been made. It's been seconded. The motion before the board is that the board approve the Wasatch Transportation Contract Amendment. Let's vote.
Matt, Member Lear's an aye.
Thank you, Member Lear. Sarah, will you reach over there and thank you. And is Member Carey with us yet? No, but he said he'll be in person. Okay. Okay, so that passes unanimously with 1 absent. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 5.4, Superintendent's report. Superintendent Coleman.
I'm going to have just a few slides to show, but I'd like it if maybe we could have the associate superintendents maybe give their associate superintendent updates first, and then I'll follow them. That works. Yeah, what do I need to do here?
Okay, great. I'm happy to be here and give you some updates as far as it's been quite the summer, which I know it has been for a lot of you too. I wanted to just update you for the School for the Blind when we were going through some budget constraint issues and whatnot. The School for the Blind itself, we needed to RIF or provide a reduction in force for 5 of our positions at USB with people actually in them that were not vacant positions. And I will say, I just want to make it clear, I've said this to our employees at the School for the Blind over and over again, that these people were doing an excellent job. They were providing services to students, but they were not linked to IEPs, and that's why we had to prioritize those. Because of that, as you can imagine, we have employees that are very nervous and insecure about all positions at USDB, and on a daily basis, I hear, what about this program, or what about this position? So I wanted to let you know that. I know that you probably can imagine that. I don't necessarily need to say that, but I wanted anybody in the public to hear me say that as well. That these people that were lost were not positions that we really could lose. The other thing is that we're down to the bare bones as far as cutting any other positions, and I wanted to make that very clear as well. On a more positive note, we had our opening institute, our opening kickoff yesterday, and I felt like it went well. I think that Michelle and I, were able to give some information that I think was very well received, but very much needed, as far as where we were and where we are today, and what we will be doing moving forward for this year. Because again, people are very insecure, confused, possibly, and we just need to be reassuring that their job is to teach and to provide services and to make sure that we have the data that's proving that we're doing that, which we do, and then that's all they need to worry about. The rest of it is our job. And so that was kind of the overall arching message, is that we are in support of them and what they are doing, and that we have faith and confidence in what they are doing, and value. I think that that's a big deal right now, is that our employees, our teaching staff, but not only our teaching staff, our paraeducators, the ones that, and other support staff, that we have confidence in what they're doing, and that they feel very valued. We did complete a lot of summer activities, and they were very successful. We had several different expanded core curriculum activities, including cooking camp, including Campabilities, which we participated with Arizona State in Flagstaff. And then we also did a Bear Lake row in preparation for our 7048 next year, the first part of June. And we've developed a canoe crew. So we're starting kids actually that are in junior high that will be a part of this canoe crew, that they have 2 or 3 years of preparation before they'll actually kind of try out to make sure that they're prepared for the exertion of that 7048. So that's been in place, and I'm just so proud of them. They did row all 3 days and then camped, but they also did a complete overnight row at Bear Lake. So anyway, I'm just always amazed at the exuberance and the endurance of the students, but also our staff, once again, that they're participating in that. And then last week we had our Moab adventure, and I talked to several of the chaperones, a couple that weren't even a part of USB, and they did things like they did rappelling, they did river running, river rafting. We had kids that were rappelling down cliffs. that were, when I saw the when I saw the pictures, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know that I could do that. One of our employees, who was actually a director, and she was very open. She said, I got to the top of that cliff and I looked down and I started to cry. And she said, and our kids were saying, you can do this. You can do this. And she said, I didn't know if it was because, they didn't have as much vision, but they gave me a vote of confidence. They gave me a vote of confidence in actually going down. And, but they, the amount, these activities are not only for, for expanded core purposes or for curriculum and academic progress. We monitor that, we have outcomes and everything, but there's so much more to it. There's so much in the team building aspect of it. There's so much more in self-esteem building and things that are going to be so needed in their future endeavors of, I can do hard things and have done these really hard things that maybe even their sighted peers have not done. And they don't get the opportunities. You think about if you had a child who was completely blind, it might scare you to go on a family trip to Moab where they're doing some of these activities. So anyway, I wanted to report on that even though we've had a summer that has been tumultuous and our educators are working so diligently. They're ready for the school year. They're excited for the school year. And the reason they are is because of their dedication for our kids. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. So thank you.
Oops. I will add, I've been involved with all of these difficult discussions that we've been having all this summer, which have been rough and hard. I think that Superintendent Patton has outlined those pretty well. So we've been involved with those, and starting on this new school year, we have been focusing on professional learning is happening today. We did our opening institute yesterday. Because of the struggles that we're involved with right now, the focus on the deaf school side, we talked about teamwork and the importance of a team. And that in a team is not a one or an individual, it's not one division, it's not one department, it takes a whole. And so we spent a great deal of time focusing on it's not just the School for the Deaf people, it's our facility staff, it's our IT, it's the board, it's the legislature, it's the whole group that moves this agency forward. So we talked about that although this may be a hard time, hard defines great. If you want to achieve great things, you have to go through hard things. And so we focused yesterday on understanding that we are going through a time together. And over this summer, I had sent to the teachers and the staff, the faculties, a little tiny penguin. The symbolism of the penguin is, I don't know if you know this, but when penguins are up in the north and it gets extremely cold and the weather gets really bad, they huddle together. They support one another and they protect their children, or their little penguins. And so we wanted to just be together and work together and go as a team in the same direction. So that was our focus yesterday with that, and that's where we got started. I did get to dress up as Mary Poppins, as anybody knows. I enjoy it, and Mary Poppins is my favorite. So we had dressed up and sang Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Signed it, not sang it, because that'd be harder. Anyway. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you that we've been working on very diligently, and I can't wait for it to come to you, and hopefully it will come in September, October. Malia's not here. I think she's going to tell me October. There we go. See? It's October. But it is, she knows, see? Do you see how Leah knew exactly what I was talking about? And you guys haven't heard the topic? It's the Deaf Ed Apple. So we have the Apple program for elementary and secondary. We've been working very hard for quite some time, and we're hoping in October we will have the Deaf Ed Apple ready for presentation. It will go to the subcommittee first, and the licensing and all that, and then we'll come to you. And we're excited about that. That's taken a long time. So that's the update on the deaf school side.
Thanks. Thanks to both of you and board members. It's good to be with you today. I just want to take a couple minutes briefly and chat with you about, obviously, recently I've been doing some reflecting and thought about some of the highlights over the past 12 years at the Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. And right now, as both of the associates described, of course, we have some challenges, mainly financially related. And as you know, we've been very open with you over the years as we've gotten to this point, trying to avoid it. But But here we are. And yesterday in our opening institute, it was great to be able to go around and talk to the teachers and just look at them in the eyes after coming back from the break. They had heard different things, but genuinely, they were really excited to teach. And I think they worry a lot less about administrative things than we do, obviously. It's in our minds and in front of us every day. And so it was good to be transparent and share with them what happened. A lot of them were like, oh, okay, now what about teaching? And it's great. They're just the excitement and the joy that comes with starting a new school year was really, really apparent. And I was hoping maybe, and just as I share a couple of ideas with you today, to keep us focused for a minute on the big picture. Even though we're in the weeds all the time, this season is going to pass, and USDB is in actually very, very good shape. The bones, they call it, when they come into a building to renovate, our architects used to say, wow, and we've done extensive renovations over the years of our older buildings, as well as improving the newer ones, of course, but they said, man, the bones are so good here, the bones of this building, and that's really how I feel about USDB at this time. And I was looking back through my notes, and when I came on board in June of 2013, in June is when I started, but our opening institute, of course, our year kickoff is in August. And just in those 2 intervening months, as I got to know people and understand USDB better, I realized there are some really good foundational things here, even though USDB had significant challenges at the time. Much more concerning for the education itself than our financial challenges are right now, even though they seem important, I know. But as I got to know the people, I realized there were several things, and these bullet points come directly from my first address in 2013 we used to have everyone physically come together to one place throughout the state, and we did that until COVID, and now we kind of use a modified format. But when I stood up in front of them and looked at this audience of almost 600 employees from across the state, I acknowledged the challenges just briefly. But then I said, here's what I've seen already. And it's that there's something we call the USDB heart. And it's the kind of people that work there. It's the kind of people that choose to go into this work. And then once they get there, they don't seem to have the kind of burnout as a group or the kind of challenges that we faced as educators in more traditional settings where we kind of go up and down. These are amazing people. They just are in it 100% and they love it from the time they get there until they have to retire if that day ever comes. And I told them when we face our challenges, our unique culture is really the best arrow that we have in our quiver. And we reminded them that our core focus is always the student first and their families. And I know everyone in public education says that, but quite often adult issues get in the way of always keeping the child first. It's not like we ignore children, but at USDB, that's a unique thing. It never changes. It's always, the main thing is always the main thing, as Susan Patton loves to say. And I told them also, our work here deserves the appropriate resources. And I committed at that time, we're going to get the buildings that we need. We're going to get the funding that we need. We're going to do, it's my job, it's not yours to worry about. You be the educators you are. But I'm also going to help you within whatever control I have to become better educators. Even though you're some of the best out there, and I knew that because of their specialties, we can always improve. So we just planted the seeds of that culture of constant improvement at the same time. And the last thing I told them was, as important as this is, take care of your personal life. This is not your life. This is your career. It's noble. It's awesome. But no success at school will compensate for failure in your homes or your personal families. And so I just told them, it's not my job. I'm not going to interview you about that. That's you. But I want you to know we value that. And when you have special situations arise, and we have a couple right now, even in our administrative group, I said, we are going to try to support and help you and make it so you can handle your personal life matters more than your career. And it's as important as it is. Well, then what happened, and this will go pretty fast here, starting the next year immediately, we started having great success. We got fully funded educator increases, and they were put into code so that we don't have to ask for that in our IFRs every year. At that time, it became automatic for the legislature. We immediately got some seed funding and started planning our Salt Lake campus expansion. Our deafblind project had already been built by Susan and others under her direction, but this is when we just started getting real national attention with our deafblind grant. And one of the things I was tasked with from the board was to develop and strengthen the relationships with LEAs in the state that had suffered tremendously for different reasons, different places, and to create strength throughout our other key partners. We also established a TVI scholarship program because we couldn't get enough teachers of the visually impaired. We couldn't get the special ed folks to come over and become specialists in blind and low vision kids. And so we provided scholarships for them, and we established the enrichment program. This was Superintendent Jones. He came on shortly after I did. He was one of the first hires that I made. And together we tried to figure out how we could do these things. In the enrichment program, the funding existed, but it had not been developed into a robust program. And today, as you know, board members, we talk about this. It's almost like every single board meeting we talk about some aspect of that. It's a very powerful program now. And another thing I was tasked with was to do the master communications plan, to get the word out about the good work that was happening that was not acknowledged. And we were mostly concerned that there were families who were not benefiting from the resources and the expertise at USDB. And so that by doing that, we would help them find their way to us if they need it to help their kids. The next year, we completed our first accreditation of, 5 or 6 that we've done since then, with regular accreditation, deaf school accreditation, blind school accreditation. And these folks are just blown away at what happens in Utah. Of course, this isn't all me. This is because of our team that we have. But they come here, and it is not an exaggeration to say at our closing accreditation interviews, there are some who have literally had tears in their eyes and said, we wish we could bring everyone to see what happens here. We started experiencing tremendous legislative support at that time. We broke new ground on the Salt Lake Center. We had an audit. Well, we requested an audit, and we severed our ties with a program called Sound Beginnings, where our work was essentially outsourced in the northern part of the state. And we recaptured that because it was actually not benefiting some of the students the way it should have been. And that was actually a very, very challenging time between us and higher ed. And over time, those fences have been mended, but we've retained control of what matters most so that the kids get what they need. And we also were really seeing increased board involvement and support. I've told many of you before that when I was a member of the board, we actually didn't even meet with USDB as in board meetings, not even monthly. And so that really, this is the time when we started really helping to strengthen the entire system. And we added the Friday letter in 2015 to our master communications plan. That was an idea I brought back from visiting some other colleagues in our national networks, and it has been probably the strongest part of our communications plan to help properly acknowledge what's going on and to really show the world what their children can have access to if they need our help. 2016, we opened the Openshaw Center. You noticed it was named Openshaw. And this is a tender part, really, of our service there. Mark Openshaw was a member of this board, and he was a dear friend of all of us. And Mark was not a normal board member. Mark was very, very special and different. And I won't go into that in too much detail, but he and his family, most of his family passed away in a tragic plane accident. And so the board chose to name our campus, our Salt Lake new building on that campus, the Mark Openshaw Education Center. And that united us as board and USDB leadership in a very, very special way. We also had you approve our deaf education license during that year, which has made a significant change in helping us to administer our teaching and learning appropriately for different groups of kids. And we started planning our Springville campus because Ogden and Salt Lake had this, but Utah County, with its large population, did not have a place kids could go to daily for those that are close enough for campus. And we also introduced at that time a very simple, three-pronged, kind of a visionary process, which was the full student focus, which you know we're all about, also competency-based approaches, and driven by technology, which for kids with sensory disabilities makes all the difference in the world. Today, this is like nothing, right? I mean, you look at that and you go, well, everyone's talking about this. But back then, people weren't even using these words yet. And we determined this way forward. And so when certain things happened later, like COVID, we were very, very well prepared. And that has actually been a driving framework for us. In 2017, we updated our strategic plans and started a real emphasis on our people internally across the state to help the deaf and the blind school, but also the outreach and the campuses feel unified as if they're one family. And we adopted the hashtag #WeAreUSDB, and now that's quite common among other schools too. You see it almost everywhere, or something like it. There was a third party that year that ranked us the #1 program in the nation in several different aspects, including like adults later and their dependency on government programs, significantly lower in Utah. And Superintendent Tanner, she approached me with this. This was not my idea, but I fully supported it. This is called the Lead K Initiative, which was going around in all the different states and causing as many challenges as it resolved. But by taking control of this as USDB, we led it here, fixed it, and this really creates language equity and acquisition for deaf kids, which was a huge, huge problem before. And this is the point where other programs started looking to Utah as an example, and it got even better. In 2018, I would say right before COVID, this was our heyday. And we created our Portrait of a Graduate initiatives for both the deaf and the blind school. And this was parallel to the State Board of Education doing it. We didn't wait. We led out, but you know our programs well enough to know that this is actually sort of natural for us. We didn't have to follow any other political movement or this was genuinely the way we educate kids at USDB, and it retains a proper balance between families and schools without getting into where families should be, but acknowledges our partnership with them so that we can look at everything these children need. And our families, just a side note, from 2013 until now, it's night and day difference. If you ask any board member from back then, it's kind of weird that there are not constant complaints and challenges from the families, because that was the history prior. And our families are so, so grateful for the support and the education their kids are getting now. We established the USDB Foundation at that time to help try to raise extra money. And they're doing a good job, and they're about to do a new strategic plan when the statewide working group is finished. And that year we hosted the League of Innovative Schools, possibly the scariest thing that we've ever done externally during the administration. These are the most forward-thinking educators, superintendents in the country, and they are awesome. But when they came here, their feedback, we were asking, what do you see that we can improve? And they said, we just want to take everything back to our special programs. I can't say this enough, that hosting experience for our staff to be able to display to the world how to best teach students with vision and hearing loss, it just took them to a whole new level. And then this is the one thing that really changes lives the most. We've established the first and really the only dual modality deaf program in the world. Not separate, but students here, and you know we've talked about this, Superintendent Tanner, again, was really spearheaded this, but we had to work together as a team very hard because we had tremendous pushback from the outside world for a long time. And this is so students don't have to choose between sign language or listening and spoken language in their lives. They get it all. And parents are not forced into the untenable position of deciding when their children are babies what they're going to do the rest of their lives with them. This program, even the American School for the Deaf, the oldest school in America, in Connecticut, that was started before Gallaudet University even existed, they have called and asked us, how'd you do that again? We want to try to emulate that. This is really big, and it has changed really, really, without hyperbole, changed lives in significant ways. Since then, this last little time slide here, we opened the Springville campus during COVID. We experienced essentially, really statistically, no learning loss. There are no other schools anywhere that I know that have ever claimed that during COVID. We had our maiden voyage of the 7048, which has brought well-deserved recognition to our students and their teachers and leaders. And of course, you know, some of our financial challenges are caused by the robust but good growth that we've had in our outreach programs on our campuses, in our enrichment program, and we've had tremendous academic success on campus and competing with other schools around the country. And so as I read back through those things, I thought, there is a lot to celebrate at USDB, and I hope that helps sustain us during this time of challenges. Personally, I just wanted to put one little slide in here to talk about some of the things I'll take away from this. My greatest honor was to be the superintendent of USDB since 2013. I don't know many other people who can express as much pride as I can because of this. And I will always be grateful for the opportunities I've had, and thanks to you and the other board members over the years. I also got a chance to be the interim state superintendent in 2014, and in that short time I learned more than I ever thought I would. It really was awesome. I was also asked to be the interim executive director and co-direct the State Office of Rehabilitation with Superintendent Scott Jones. We split that in half, and each of us took 2 divisions, while the board was restructuring that to turn it over to Division of Workforce Services. I had a couple awards recently. Leadership and Communications Award in 2023, to be a finalist for National Superintendent of the Year this past year, and then just recently named as a top 100 education influencer. That's all nice, but the things I really think about when I think about USDB are the students and families and the 63 board members, many of whom have become dear, genuine friends. I was in a meeting with Arthur Brooks once, and he said, you know, there's deal friends and there's real friends. And we're all deal friends when we're on the board or working with the board, because we have, and that's not a bad thing. That's good. You have deal friends everywhere in your life. You're there because of a deal. It helps to be together. But through that process, you make real friends. And he said, make sure you have real friends. In the process of your life, make sure you have more. And so I'm grateful for those of you board members who have become, and others before you, who have become real friends, and the other friends with all of our partners and our staff especially. This is what really comes to mind for me all the time when I think of USDB. It's not the adults, as much as I care for all the adults. This is what is in my mind that I can't get out of my mind. And it's what warms my heart and makes me smile every time that I remember the day in and day out joy that we felt working together. As I kind of wrap it up here, I just wanted to thank you. Very few people, I think, probably ever get to feel as satisfied. It's very sad to me in a few ways, but it's very exciting. The next opportunities that are coming up, which I'm not quite ready to announce yet, but this, to me, it's just such a moment of happiness, because being able to be involved in an endeavor where you truly get to witness and play some little part in changing lives in significant ways, that's not hyperbole at USDB. And the bones are good. This organization is strong, and it will weather the challenges now, especially if we get the kind of support that policymakers are talking about giving in the future, as long as they can be satisfied that it's going to do what it's supposed to do. And that's just a special thanks to my assistant, Tammy Flint, who's one of the finest humans I've ever met, and the associates, Dr. Tanner and Susan Patton, who've been extremely supportive. I'm actually quite uncomfortable with this, because I don't like to talk about me, but it's been easy to push them out in front of me and to always celebrate their successes, because they're awesome. So anyway, that's my report, and thank yous to all of you for allowing me to have the opportunity to serve in this capacity.
Thank you, Superintendent Coleman. We appreciate your years of service and dedication to our Utah students in this capacity. And so we wish you luck in your future endeavors, of course. Moving on, we have one more agenda item, 5.5, the USDB Workgroup update. Vice Chair Wood.
Thank you, and thank you, Superintendent Coleman. So the USDB work group began meeting on June 25th, 2025, and as you recall from your approval, we have 19 members from superintendents, special ed directors, a BA, ERISA representative, legislators, staff from USBE and USDB, and I wanted to make sure you were aware. I know Member Carey was very concerned about making sure there was a parent rep on there, so when we got a representative from our advisory council, we got one of our most active parents to be there, so we got that role filled. Our first meeting established the outcomes for our meetings. We wanted an understanding of what the knowledge base of our attendees is and what they hope to achieve through being engaged in the work. We asked the questions, where are you leaning with continuing, modifying, and or stopping services as provided by USDB? Our second meeting focused on the scope and services of USDB and where they fit within the spectrum of special education. And we'll be meeting again on Monday, where we'll begin to discuss potential funding models for the future of USDB. We've had some challenges with data that put us off. We were supposed to meet last week, and we needed a couple more weeks to pull everything together. But just had a meeting at lunch that gives me hope that we're moving in a positive direction. So I just want to thank Todd Call for facilitating, Deborah and Leah and Andrea for the hours they're putting in to support the work group and the support of USDB leadership as we move forward to hopefully have some answers by the end of the summer. So I can answer questions, but that's kind of where we're at.
Seeing no questions from board members, let's move on to agenda item 6, USDB committee report. So back to you, Vice Chair Wood.
Yeah, and we have no action items at this time. So
That was an easy report. I know. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, Assistant Superintendents Tanner and Patton. We appreciate your time. Next on the agenda, we have our study session. And do we have Katie with us? We'll grab her. Let's just take a few minutes, board members, as we transition. All right, board members, thank you. And thank you to our staff. With us, we have, this is our study session, and I'm hoping, board members, as we listen to this presentation that Katie, Aaron, and Jared have put together for us, that we can ask questions. I have found, as I chaired the Law and Licensing Committee for 2 years, as I sat on the Law and Licensing Committee for a total of 4 years, and then a little bit longer on the board meeting, it feels like we get a lot of the same questions that come up whenever we deal with data privacy. And so we wanted to put this study session together so that we could ask those questions in hopes of understanding a little bit better and being more efficient when we are crossed with these data requests, data privacy requests, so that we have a better understanding. So with that, and that in no way, let me just make this clear, that in no way is, I am not asking you to not ask your questions. I am not asking you to gather information or to get understanding. I'm just saying, instead of doing it month after month, we can take this opportunity to gather as much as we can, which will help with your questions in the future be more targeted and effective. So with that, we've got, Katie, are you leading this? Katie, you're in the middle. You are ready to go. Kelsey wants somebody else to start. Let's get it.
Kelsey's like, nope. Hi, board. Katie Chalice, Director of Privacy. I actually have a question for you, Chair. Our presentation was kind of weighted about... Data systems. Yeah, so it's currently weighted about like 30-70 in terms of content, 30 being privacy, 70 being information about data systems. Do you want us to shift that a little bit? Do you want me to focus more on data privacy and Aaron does a little bit less?
I do not. The reason I bring that up to board members, I know that you guys are prepared. You're going to give us some awesome stuff. I want board members to feel comfortable asking. So if that shifts naturally because of questions, then I think we follow that. I just want to answer questions that board members have, understanding that it's different when the contract is not right in front of you, right? So it may or may not happen. Just want the opportunity to be there. So
Okay.
Please continue as planned.
Okay, excellent. And admittedly, like my section is very high level, but I would love to answer. I think you know by now that I love getting into the weeds on data privacy stuff, so happy to answer any questions. Again, my name's Katie Chalice. I'm the Director of Privacy. I have a team that works with and for me, and actually I'll bring that up here, but I wanted to just start by thanking you for your stewardship over the data that we store, both employee and student data that we store at USBE. I have a chance to kind of work with counterparts in other states, and sometimes when a privacy professional in another state sort of expresses concerns about data sharing or data reporting, they don't always have the kind of support or data privacy concerns that this board has. So I often find myself feeling like really fortunate to be in the position I'm in, because you are such you are a board that cares so much about this topic. It makes my job lovely. So thank you for that. I just pulled together 8 things that I thought the board would be interested in knowing today, and then obviously open to questions. And also, I'll just walk through these one at a time. So the first is that wanted to make the board aware that the data privacy laws and the data privacy ecosystem in Utah is nationally recognized. So when I go to some of these conferences with my peers from other states, they're like, oh yeah, we know Utah has their act together data privacy wise. We have some really groundbreaking laws that were passed here surrounding student data protection, and the legislature chose to fund some positions here, which is really amazing. So that's really exciting. Part of the reason we are nationally recognized by our peers is that you have a dedicated staff. So it's pretty uncommon for states to even have one data privacy person at the SEA level. In the case of your your staff, you have me, and then I have several people on my team who are also dedicated to this work. So that's pretty exciting and very unique. Third, I wanted to just mention that the data sharing that happens here at the State Board of Education is very controlled. So sometimes I've heard people say things like, oh, you know, data's going in and out, and it's just kind of willy-nilly. And so I just wanted to confirm for you today that we have tight and stringent processes and controls in place that really do, it makes it difficult for data to leave, if anything. And that's on purpose for protection reasons. Another fact that I'd love you to know about that we're really proud of is a focus on what's called data minimization. Data minimization is the concept of minimizing how much data you collect in the first place. This is a really interesting privacy principle because it puts you in a position where if you were in the unfortunate situation of experiencing a breach, for example, information can't be leaked if it was never housed in the first place. So when it comes time to collect data from LEAs, for example, we're very purposeful and try to ask ourselves, hey, what's the minimum amount of information we need to accomplish the task, and collect only that amount. Fifth, and Jared would be, I'm sure, happy to speak to this more, but your staff is set up with need-to-know access only. So of the many staff who work for USBE, a very small number of those relatively have access to actual student data. I, for example, do not even have access to student data because I don't need it to do my job. The people who do have access are primarily on Aaron's team or they work in IT. The data privacy team is also involved in USIM's development, so we're closely integrated with that work to help sure that data privacy protections are put in place there. Second to last point I'll make is that your staff are very privacy minded. So on the daily, I get emails from people in the agency who are like, Katie, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Can you tell me the appropriate way to share this data? Or what kind of data sharing agreement do we need in place in order to share this data with another agency? It's top of mind for your staff. And the last thing that I'm excited to announce is that we are about to launch a new privacy training course for USBE staff members and board members. And the format of that is like a little bit yet to be determined, but we're confident that it's going to be a great resource, and we're excited for you to have a chance to engage with that. That'll be coming probably in the next couple months. And that concludes my section. So do you want Aaron to take over?
I was just going to pause and see, board members, do we have any questions for Director Chalice up to this point? Okay, seeing no lights, we'll go ahead and continue.
Jared, you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll go.
Yeah, just Jared Felt, USBE IT Director. So I'm just here to support them with any questions.
I just wanted to give him recognition, and in our meeting, he's like, oh, you just talk. So here I go. Aaron Bruff, I'm the Director of Data and Statistics. We're going to talk really about the public education data systems and making sense of what do we do and why. Maybe not so much detail of the how. When I say the how, what are the systems, but what do we actually do? So to start off with, let's kind of talk about data literacy. So data literacy really kind of takes up three components. So if we did a Venn diagram, there's some overlap between these, but really it's understanding one, looking at the screen, it says communicating with data, making sure that the information that we give out, again, data literacy makes sense. And so we do a lot of work actually reviewing the information. We don't just throw it out there and say, let the public figure it out for themselves. We do a lot of review and analysis to make sure that our visualization, our reporting, our presentation actually is engaging to the best of our ability. Now, I do know that sometimes people's eyes glaze over. When I say sometimes, regularly, when we start getting into some deeper information, they're like, I don't know what this is. But just sharing is, there is an effort inside of data literacies. Make sure it is clear and understandable. So for example, if you go to the data gateway and you look up those public facing reports, or if you have questions on them, we try to make them understandable and engaging. Two, organizing the data. When we talk about data literacy, really it's understanding what do we have and where is it coming from. So it's that collection, it's the management, it's the quality assurance inside of there. As we look at the data sets, the important part of the question is, do we have it? Can we get it? Can we organize it? Are there ways to overlap the components? So there are often questions that we get, hey, can you tell me about fill in the blank? And sometimes I'll be up here at the table or we'll be in a meeting and I'll say, yes, I can get that to you in like 3 seconds. That's because of the data organization is already in place and ready to go. Other times the question will come and I'll be like, nope, I can't answer that question, or I think I can get to the answer to that question, but it's going to take some work. So just kind of sharing as when we talk again about data literacy, it's understanding what do we have, what don't we have, and how do we overlay the information. So for example, when we start talking about teachers, and I'll be sharing this a little bit later, and we start bringing in the students, and then we start bringing in finance. And let's say we want to do a return on investment. We really want to understand how the per pupil expenditure is being calculated. There's a lot of information that has to be organized and wrangled and checked to bring in. So that's another component of data literacy. And the final one is, the analyzing the data, making sure you understand as we start interpreting information and going through those processes that there's standards that we follow. Yesterday during the board meeting, there's discussions, and I'm just referencing back to yesterday when we were talking about the climate survey. How's that information used? What are the thresholds? How do you do different things? A lot of those answers are, well, we would go back to the standards of, different levels of analysis. How do we, are we talking about descriptive statistics? Are we talking about, the word just fell out of my head. The other one, Scott, what's the other one? Inferential statistics, sorry. So as we're looking at these things, do we have to apply, like, for example, Bayesian logic to it, so on and so forth. So these are the components of data literacy that your staff does for you. So moving forward, and this is just kind of understanding this taxonomy of data uses and its purposes. So when we talk about data, there are multiple levels to it. So I've listed the 5 here: person-centric, system-centric, accountability-centric, ROI, program evaluation, impact, and diagnostic improvement. And I'm going to go into each one in a little bit more detail. So the first one is called, again, using the word person-centric, this really means role level or item level, event level information. So finance is not a person, but it's a role level information. So that's what we're talking about right here, is this information focuses on the record. And how do we use this? Well, quality assurance. We get in. Is this correct? Is this information as we expected inside of there? The audit team obviously goes in and takes a look at this information. Is what we're seeing expected? Again, this is role level checking. Teacher certification. Did the teacher complete all of the requirements as they're going through the licensure process? Transcripts checks. Did all the classes get completed? Things of that nature. Tools. You have your SIS system. Every LEA has an SIS. We, for example, here at the state, we have our ESS, or the Vantage, which is the employee portal. It's the financial portal that we're working with. Payroll's involved with this. Use case studies. So just kind of sharing it. This is really deep down, if you will, into that. Think of a spreadsheet, that row. That's what we're looking at. Limitations. This is not really good for system evaluation. You don't take a row and say, how well is the system working? What you're doing is you're looking at the row saying, do we have good quality inside of it? So just kind of, and then we're going to start building upon this. So next one is that system-centric perspective. As we talk about system-centric, hey, what do we want to know? I use the word KPIs, that's a key performance indicator. There's other ways of approaching this, but looking at benchmarks, we put together dashboards. We want to understand as we are aggregating this information, so no longer are we looking at the student level or the teacher level or the actual financial invoice. We're looking at the aggregate level behind that. And we want to make sure that what is going on in here and it makes sense. When I say when it makes sense, this is following the expectation, the health of the system is how we're looking at this here. Talking about privacies for a moment too, we also want to make sure that because schools have a geographical boundary, we have to be very careful with n size, meaning, how many kids are making up this aggregate. And so we have disclosure avoidance rules that we have to put in place for students in particular. They're very stringent, and we have to check those constantly and make sure that we're not exposing. The reason why is it's easy to overlay one source of information, such as enrollments. If we just had enrollment counts and then I overlay it with performance, if my n sizes are small enough, you can do some math, some simple math and say, yep, I can determine that 3 of the 6 kids, for example, were proficient, and you can start figuring things out. So we have to avoid things like that. But with that said, moving on, tools, again, you've got Power BI, you've got Excel, you've got Tableau, you've got the data gateways, tools that we make available for you. Again, as we start giving you some examples, we're, teacher retention, student performance over time, financial performances. Again, this is system-centric. So again, student or person system-centric, and then we'll move on to the next level, which is really this accountability. What this means is there's predefined standards that we're trying to measure or hit or look at. So, for example, when you think about the accountability, the school accountability system, it is full of a predefined set of standards, and we're aggregating things up through that system level, putting business rules in place and saying, did we meet certain expectation? Again, tools, talking about, for example, financially, you have your monthly allotment memo. That information is going out. How was the funding utilized? You've got the school report card. You have the accountability indicators, which is also a report card on the data gateway. You have your Acadience reading and math. You have your at-risk ratings in finance. These are the things that you want to look at. Who cares about this information? Well, you do. Local board care about this information. Are schools performing to the standard that we are expecting them to perform at? Next level, return on investment, program evaluation perspective. What are we doing here? It's like we're trying to evaluate the effectiveness and the efficiency from looking at the data. So again, I'm looking at a program that maybe was the legislation instituted, and we want to say, is the money that we're investing in here actually moving the needle in performance? And so it's a little bit more complex than just saying, where's the needle at on accountability? It's saying, now, if I put some resources into this, can I actually start seeing changes of movements? Again, tools, again, Tableau, machine learning, other tools that we use for this is like R or Python. We have different programs, and that give you some examples inside there. So for example, the Teacher Merit Award, which is a new program that's coming out. We want to make sure that, yeah, this is actually going to be moving a needle or not, what's going on inside of there. The final one is diagnostic and improvement perspective. Really what we're looking at here is we're trying to, once we build up to this level, you're trying to slice and then dig back in and drill into it and try to identify what caused an issue or concern. So, for example, if we have in here your continuous improvement, your climate survey analysis. When you really want to know what's happening and diving into what are some potential issues or concerns. Again, give some example of the tools that we use, which are similar. The example I can give you here is like, we want to know what is the MTSS fidelity? What about absenteeism trends and what's going on? And it's really knowing the in-depth of what is going on behind the scenes and understand how, as a board and as a state board of education, we can help the schools and the districts and such. Any questions so far? Again, I know your eyes are glazing slightly. It's after lunch. I feel the same way. So, Okay.
I know you're excited. I'm just wondering if you already covered we had a meeting a while back, you and I. We spent about an hour and a half together. Do you remember that?
I've had lots of meetings with you.
I know. I know.
No, so.
But we beta tested a couple things. Did you already address that when I was in the hallway, or is that coming?
I don't remember what I beta tested with you.
Never mind
so,
then.
I apologize. After this, we'll talk.
Well, okay. I like these guys, but especially Director Bruff you really bring light to a lot of situations, and so I'm just excited to see the work you do. Thank you.
Okay.
So you mentioned the Teacher Merit Award Program. What role do you guys play in that when it comes to data?
Great question. So the Teacher Merit Award, so again, some information on that one. The university, it's Utah State University is running it, and they'll be doing the majority of the work. However, we're also watching and so we work in collaboration. We have a data sharing agreement that was put in place. And so we will do an additional evaluation and look at what's happening of their results as they come back and they say, here's our findings. We'll validate or dispute their findings, depending on how they approach it, because we'll go through and we'll read the results. In addition, there's a dashboard or a teacher dashboard component that's been added to it by legislation that will also be doing a program evaluation. How many teachers are using this? Where are we seeing fidelity, like high logins or not? Is that correlating with what we're seeing from what the program is doing? So that's an example of, well, how do you do that? I'm going to point back up in here. It gets complicated because really what we're talking about is I've got this value level on one axis and then complexity on another. So if it's just the student, when I say student, I'm going to use the word person level centric, it's not as complex. There's value in it. But as we start moving over into that diagnostic or that evaluation process, a lot more complicated, you get more value out of it. But it takes, it's not a, let me give you an example. If someone asks me, hey, I've got a question about a student's information, we think it's incorrect, we may need to make an adjustment. How long does that take my staff or myself to find? Usually like 4 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever it is. Quick, easy to find it. If someone says, let's evaluate the merit pay, I would say, great, give me a year. That's the level of effort you have put into it. Does that help? Okay. So again, sharing kind of this matrix up here of saying, okay, line item stuff, pretty easy to get to. It's not very complex, valuable, but really as we start within the role that we play as the board, the more valuable stuff is when we start aggregating it and moving it up, but it does become more complex. Looking at my watch, got to move a little bit faster.
You can't. We're slow. We've got a few questions.
Okay.
It's okay. We've got this is part of it. I know you got data, but we've got questions.
I know. So Jared, do you want to add anything at the end? No. Okay. I'm going to finish on this slide.
We'll finish this slide, and then I've got 3 in the queue.
Okay. I'm just going to finish on this slide real quick. So basically putting this all together, what I'm saying is no single lens is sufficient alone. We have to combine these different perspectives to really understand what is going on and have deeper insight. So with that, build up individual to the systems, to the different views really helps us get after, understanding what's going on with the system. So I will finish right there. Well, did I do that?
Yeah.
I don't know how I did that.
You touched it.
I'm done. I have more stuff. You can look in the backups. Okay.
Okay. I've got Member Green, Member Kelly, then Member Brinton. So Member Green.
All right. This is in regards to number 4, and that's the ROI. So I just want to know how we can have data help us better inform our decisions, specifically in regards to like contracts. So yesterday we took a few votes on some contracts that we needed to renew. So U-Science was one of them. How can we utilize the data to see if that actually is a contract that has been beneficial and have given results that we were looking for in the first place when we very, very first signed, on to utilizing that company or that resource. How could we better engage in that as we work through specifically contracts on our agendas?
That's, if I may, it's a wonderful question. And the answer is you have to start at the beginning and have a program evaluation theory and developed at the beginning to make sure you can follow that all the way through. And in fact, that's what we've been talking quite a bit with Superintendent Hart and with different members here and saying, how can we be more proactive to make sure that as these programs contracts get in place that we're actually tracking this all the way through and are able to answer this at the end. It does entail quite a bit of work. Do I have the silver bullet to make sure this all happens? No, but we are working on some strategies to make sure that we as a staff or you are much more prepared to answer those questions. Do you want to say anything else about that?
Not yet.
Okay.
Can I add something to about that? I'll just add to that the program evaluation is sometimes data collection and data usability and data privacy are at like a little bit of odds with each other. So returning back to this concept that the board generally really prioritizes data privacy, sometimes that comes at the cost of less usable data. So I think that's a constant consideration that any board has to grapple with is to what extent do we want to make data-informed decisions, like whether youth science is providing benefit. If that's a decision the board prioritizes, that can happen, but it typically will then require a little bit more data collection. We would need information about how many students have been using the software and so on, if that makes sense.
It does. And yeah, I think just generally, this is just an area that I have been trying to figure out and develop a little bit more as I try to engage more thoroughly with what I am or am not voting on. So, and I don't know if that's just being able to read the forms a little bit better, and it's like you said, going back to the beginning, because any contract that comes before us had a beginning, and this was a renewal, and I'm only doing this because I remember it, and it's triggered this conversation like in my head. So I just think if we're going to keep continuing on things, it can just become mindless and a little bit. And I would like just a little bit more information, but yet I also understand that would require more data that we would extract from using those programs. So that's all I have to say, so we can keep moving.
Okay.
I would, if I can just say, I hope my comment did not come across as advocating in one direction or the other. It's just something that occurs to me pretty often that, that's kind of like a trade-off that you're constantly asked to consider, but one that will happily move either direction.
She is advocating for less.
I am not.
So,
I promise.
The answer is yes, we definitely are trying to do much more. Again, this has been in my staff's wheelhouse for a number of years that we've been trying to do this. There's lots of things that get moved through in board meeting, as you guys are very well aware of. We can't do it all. When I say all of those. And so it does take some prioritization and really saying where are the heavy lifts that we really want to focus at. So it's kind of, it's that balancing saying, hey, we want to do this sounds good. Are we going to be able to evaluate this at this high level of diagnostic we can say, well, you're doing great, let's make a change here, and overall, the whole program is working or not. It just takes some effort. Yes, it does. But again, like I said, we're working actually really hard strategically to come up with some plans to say, okay, how can we do much, much better in this? Just sharing with the board, we established kind of a center of excellence about 2 years ago working on how do we start, doing these analytics and making sure that we have some traction. So for those last 2 years, I've been working on getting the thoughts, the framework behind that and getting some traction behind it so we can be of a better benefit for the entire agency. So things are moving. Are we done? No. But we are definitely moving what I think is in the right direction.
Thank you. Sorry, Vice Chair Wood doesn't have a light, so we've got her and then Member Kelly, then Member Carey.
Just to follow up to Member Green's question, do we have capacity? And if it's an initial contract required by SB2 or HB2, do they ever ask for or look for data to justify the use of that contract that we're moving forward in? And well, if it's a legislative mandate for us to put out an RFP, and how do we communicate to them that we'd love more data-driven decisions before we invest hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars into some RFP that may or may not be beneficial to our students?
So, if I may, there's been multiple ways that we've done this in the past. We've had external evaluators. It's been part of legislation that says you will contract with an external evaluator and they'll do this. Another way that has happened in the past is actually you write it into the RFP with expectation with whoever the vendor is saying, you will be supplying additional information and data and we're going to be doing research. So we have done that in, again, not all, but we've done that in a number where it's put it up front saying these are things that we want and expect to be answering as we go through. So I can give you an example for that one for the early warning system because it was set up as a pilot. It enabled us not to go full statewide, but we looked at that very closely and put those evaluations as we move through, and we've actually completed now 2 evaluation or program reviews on how well is this working. So that's the example. We are doing it, again, multiple ways. External evaluator, you can say we're going to do this internally. You can say it's going to be part of what we expect the vendor to do. Again, and you have to look at the biases and how are they going to approach it and just question it up front. Does that help? And if I can answer on capacity, can't do, Scott says, we can do anything, but we can't do everything, right?
No, that's really helpful
Yeah.
because as we're working with legislators, we need to be upfront and saying, look, let's work this in, that we've got some data to back this up. So in a year or 2 or 3, we can say, look, this is working or it's not, and come back and reevaluate how we're spending the funds. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We've got Member Kelly, then Member Carey. Then I'm going to request board members we've hit that time. But if we have additional questions, I know you guys are willing to answer those if we take those online or to the email or catch you in the hall. I don't care, but just looking at time and the work that we have moving forward. Member Kelly.
Yeah, my question is for Director Chalice. Appreciate you being here. And I'm going to yesterday's board meeting, and I'm the 2 requests for data that they were bringing to us. In my mind, I'm thinking what data is publicly available should suffice in terms of you having the ability to conduct this research. Why is it that we would need to give you permission? And so I guess maybe what I'm asking you to do is, is advocate for them. Is there a reason why we should give them that permission to have further access into our data than what is publicly available?
I'm sorry. My mic was already on. Yes, there's absolutely reason, depending on the priorities of the board, to provide someone data beyond what's publicly available. The data that is made publicly available primarily by Erin's team and posted on the website is, as was mentioned, this very kind of high-level aggregate data. So we're talking things like students at American Fork High School in 9th grade received, they were 63% proficient on the, what's it called, Utah Aspire Plus math. That's the kind of level of data that is made publicly available. It's interesting, but it is not sufficient in order to conduct most types of research in most cases, a researcher is going to want to control for certain variables. And in order to control for those variables, they would need typically student level data, and they would need other variables such as, was this student eligible for free or reduced lunch prices, aka, low income? Was this student male or female? Was this student, an English language learner? Were they receiving special ed services? The most valuable types of information come from more thorough data, and we do not provide that without a data sharing agreement. So to answer your question, I would say there's no way for the board to get at some of these difficult questions without that level of data, but it is, of course, always your discretion as to which projects you prioritize and who you feel comfortable sharing with. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Carol has said before, and I respect Carol in what she's saying. She's saying, hey, these research projects ultimately can benefit us because they'll provide us with information. But if it's information that the board wants or desires, why would we not conduct that research within our own organization?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is very simple, and it is capacity. If you had more staff devoted to conducting that kind of research, that's very much something that we could typically do in-house. And by we, I mean probably mostly Erin's team. There are a few instances where even if we had more capacity, we still couldn't conduct that kind of research because we're lacking other data sets. So let's say someone wanted to explore the extent to which, I'm just going to go back to this youth science example. So, hey, if students participate in youth science, how is that going to impact their post-secondary attainment? Are they more likely to go to college? We don't have post-secondary attainment data, and so we would either need to establish a data sharing agreement to obtain that, or we could rely on a third-party researcher, for example, to do that on our behalf. But the simplest answer is capacity.
Okay. Katie, Erin, Jared, thank you for all that you do, and we truly appreciate the protection that you guys put into this and the work, so thank you. Jared, we'll get you speaking up next time. Okay. All right, board members, we're going to move to agenda item 8 today. This is unfinished board business from yesterday's meeting. And to kick off here, we're going to jump back into R277-613, LEA policies and training regarding bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, retaliation, and abusive conduct. Just as a reminder, here's what has taken place with that rule. There was a motion made that there was a motion that came out of committee. There was a motion to amend that we strike lines 49 to 52 and replace with civil rights violations means violation outlined in the following federal laws. And then there was also a motion made that we strike the words that is prohibited from line 40. And then we had a motion to postpone. And so for today, so we don't need a motion to bring it back because we've already moved it to today, and that's what we're dealing with here. So with that, let's continue this discussion, and we've got a light from Member Bogus.
Thank you. So if it's acceptable to the group, I'm just going to start at the top. And I would move that on line 44, we insert the language, quote, accountability practices means the same as, however we do that language, Elise, the same as in R277-609.
Yeah, please.
You said line 44, so we're not replacing line 44, we're just creating a new line 44 and pushing
Yes.
everything down? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that accountability practices means the same as in R277609, or whatever is the appropriate rule writing language. I believe that's what I have seen elsewhere.
Okay, so the motion then is that the board insert on line 44, accountability practices means the same as described in Rule R277-609. Do we have a second? We have a second. Back to you, Member Bogus.
Yeah, so, well, I probably did these in the reverse order. Later, I have an amendment to 294 to insert the accountability practice language there, and we need this linked back to that definition.
Please.
I guess it's just a clarification of process.
Mm-hmm.
Accountability practice is in our definitions rule. And because, it's my understanding it is, in Rule 100.
Mm-mm.
And
It's in 609. I do not find it in Rule 100. I could be wrong, but according to what we have on the internet presently, under our admin rules, it is not in there.
it may not have been, it may not be effectuated, but I know that we passed it. I'm just trying to see, do we need to include the definition here because it's in Rule 100? That's all I'm trying to
So
find out.
if it's in 100, that's okay, but I did not see it in 100. When I go to Services Board admin rules, I am not seeing it there.
But it was to Member Carey's point, we did have a discussion about adding it when we first talked about this. And so it might be in process. I don't know how long that takes.
And I don't know if it's in process, then maybe we have to proceed as Member Bogus is now taking us because it's not in effect. I don't know what the legal, when we pass it, is it law? It's my understanding it's not. There's that period that you can review it, and if it's not posted, is it law? And if the answer is no, then I think Board Member Bogus is moving us in the right direction. If it is law, then we don't need to include it. Is AAG... Does that make sense?
It makes perfect
Okay.
sense.
So I don't want to slow things down, but I also don't want us to...
So it's not, if you go to the board website, it's not listed here under definitions in 100. But if it's going to be there within days, I'm totally good to not.
Superintendent Hart has a,
I was going to say.
Ben Rasmussen, Director of Law and Professional Practices. I'm showing that there was a version of 100 that was approved by the board and with a first possible effective date of yesterday. Deputy Superintendent Newey has approved those for finalization. I think at this point we're just waiting for OAR to do the final touches before Karen can post those and make them final on the website. I'm not sure if that has this definition in it, but that's probably what we're dealing with here.
So we know it's going into effect soon, but we don't know if it includes the definition?
We can find that pretty easily.
I'm asking, not telling. Oh, okay.
Chair, may I interject?
It is in there. This was passed in June board.
Okay.
So there is a definition for accountability practice in there. There is? Yes.
Okay, then.
Elise, do you still want to interject?
I just wanted to say that it was made law as of yesterday. So it's not uploaded to the website, but it is now law. So we are good to go.
Okay. Then with that, I would withdraw the motion, assuming there's no objection, and move on to the next one.
Any objection? Okay, let's consider it withdrawn. Continue.
All right. And line number 67, I move that we strike the word cause and replace it with the word instigate.
So there's a motion to replace the word cause on line 67 and replace with instigate. You want to speak to that motion?
Sure, I really feel like this is a better word. When you think about the logical chain of events, oftentimes we get caught up in what caused it as opposed to what instigated it, and they are significantly different. I think this represents a better chain of events for our school officials and our people engaged in discipline.
Member Carey?
I had a good conversation with Board Member Bogus, and in committee, I'm the one who made the motion to insert cause, and I did that because I didn't want to create a situation where the victim and the perpetrator were treated as equals, that the perpetrator should bear more responsibility, more weight, have more accountability. And I believe that substituting the word instigate for cause brings us closer to that objective. Thank you, Chair.
I'm stuck here. I don't know how to relinquish chair here. Amanda, will you be chair for a second? My concern is when you talk about instigate, if I tell you, Joe, or convince you to go slap Rod.
That would take a lot of convincing. Let me just put that
I know. That's why I'm trying to convince you instead of doing it myself, right?
Even with Randy, that would take me.
Cole, not so much. I'm the instigator, you're the cause, right? Does that make sense? That's how I'm hearing this. I would prefer the word cause. Because I'm in, yeah, I'll let you chew on that, but that's how I would read this. Member Carey.
No, that makes sense. My concern after speaking with Member Bogus about cause is what happens if I say something that triggers or offends unintentionally a response? Am I then labeled the cause and carry responsibility for the actions of that individual because I've said something that, with no intent to trigger a response, did? And I think instigate eliminates that that area because there's almost like an intentionality, an intent behind instigate, where cause is just you could do that without intent. You ran the red light, you caused this accident. Where instigate, there is that element of intentionality, and that's why I prefer instigate.
Okay, so the motion then is that the board strike cause on line 67 and replace with instigate. Let's vote.
Lear is a no.
Thank you, Member Lear. That passes 10 in favor, 5 in opposition. Those in opposition being Member Wood, Member Lear, Member Booth, Member Reel, and Member Hymas. Okay, Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to move us to line 147. And I move to strike the language non-consensual and intimate and replace it with sexually explicit. On my draft, it is 147.
So the motion, apologies, the motion before the board then is that the board strike non-consensual and intimate on line 147 and replace with sexually explicit. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a second. Member Bogus, speak to that.
My concern with the language non-consensual is that not all of our individuals in K-12 instruction are under the age of 18. There are women and young men alike that can consent to these images being created of themselves by law, but that doesn't mean they should be disseminated. And I think we need to be very clear that even if you do consent to the creation of them, you absolutely do not consent to the dissemination of them. Regardless, when it comes to school, it's inappropriate either way.
Yes. Go ahead, Chair.
I guess my question, I'm trying to, like, I don't disagree with any of that. I'm looking at, this is a bullying, hazing, albeit wrong. Does it fit into the, this rule? Does that make sense? I guess that's my question to you, maker of the motion. How does it fit into this if I create a drawing and a teacher finds it? How does that bullying, hazing, I don't know what the other terms are, cyberbullying? Yeah.
So I first of all, I did not put the language in that came out of committee. But secondly, the reality is it's not artwork or weird stuff. We're talking about, I don't know, we'll say, I got to think of a name who's not in this room. Ingrid. Ingrid has her boyfriend take pictures of her, and she's underage. And while she might have consented, regardless of her age, to that happening, it becomes bullying and hazing when they are disseminated for the purpose of doing those things. There's a line there that's crossed. And I do believe that Superintendent Nui spoke about how we're coming into compliance with this language with something, but I don't recall which one.
Follow-up, Chair, just briefly.
Yeah, Chair Hymas.
Just a quick follow-up. I hear you. We're not putting intimate images, right? We're not talking about a person anymore. I've been in education long enough to know that a sexually explicit image can easily be drawn on lockers, on tables, wherever, where you would not identify a person, but you know it's sexually explicit, right? And so I'm saying, changing that, we're now saying that's bullying. I'm not sure where it fits here. So I guess I'm speaking against the motion, not because I am in favor of any of this, but I don't know if it fits here. So with that, I'll yield to the others.
Deputy Superintendent Nui, can you help speak to what Member Bogus had asked about? Was this in the wording that was used originally? Can you help us understand that? Did that come from code?
Yes, Chair, if I may, Deputy Superintendent of Policy, Elise Nui. So this came from a federal legislation, the Take It Down Act. And if Tanya Albornoz or any of our prevention team are online, they may be able to speak more intelligently to what that entailed. But
Come on up. Go ahead and introduce yourself and speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanya Albornoz, Prevention Coordinator. This language was drawn from the federal Take It Down Act, which was passed to help address issues with AI deepfakes that are arising in schools. That piece of legislation was geared mostly towards social media apps and things of that nature. But as that federal legislation passed, then LEAs reached out to us and asked us to include it in in this section as we were making changes to it.
Thank you. Member Bogus, did you have a?
One quick thing.
Okay, it looks like Member Earl.
Okay.
I guess I'm thinking of non-consensual intimate images. Could that just be someone holding someone's hand and then someone posting that, or someone, gosh, we saw it with Coldplay, right? Someone kissing someone or not kissing someone, right? So those aren't sexually explicit, but they're still non-consensual intimate images. And so a deep fake could be a young woman who, someone said, oh, I want to create an image of me kissing so-and-so, and then distributing that may not be sexually explicit, but may be bullying, or so it's an intimate picture where it's conveying a bullying type of a situation or coercive type of situation, but may not fall under sexually explicit. Sexually explicit falls under this. But I just wonder if we're narrowing it too much, that we're actually not capturing some of the bullying that's going on that could be related to less offensive when it comes to the image itself, but maybe not with the person that it's being played out upon, right? So it could even be holding hands. It could be something very innocent, but then with the wrong person or situation lead to and the idea of non-consensual isn't sexually related necessarily. It's just not given permission for that image to be taken. And I'm just wondering about that, if that's maybe the reason why they went with that language federally, because it could certainly be a broader range of things. So.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Member Carey.
But can we see the federal statute that this is being pulled from, the language, so we can see what the correlation is in the exact language? Thank you.
We'll get it up. Leanna's just looking at it, and now she's finding it. But
Member Carey, did you have another comment?
I did, and I would say maybe the solution is we treat creation and distribution in the same sentence, and I think that's causing some issues for us, because the creation can be consensual or non-consensual. And so I would ask Director Rasmussen perhaps to weigh in on this, but would it make more sense to treat these as two distinct acts? The creation of non-consensual content, so if you have a third party taking a picture or someone else and there's no consent, that could be bullying. And then the distribution, but right now we're saying you both have to create and distribute, which creates an additional hurdle, because you can create it, but if you don't distribute it, we don't want people, capturing and creating that content and then saying, well, this doesn't apply because I didn't distribute it. So I'm prepared to make, Director Rasmussen is shaking his head in the negative.
Director Rasmussen, do you want to come on up and answer that for us?
If I may, I was just going to say that I don't think that having these two together is problematic. I think if an LEA has a policy like this says that, which includes a prohibition on this, it doesn't mean that if somebody, that you have to do both to violate the policy. I think doing one or the other would still violate the policy.
Then why don't we just say or?
You could easily change that to creation or distribution. I don't think that would
Well,
be...
at this board, nothing is easy, but I understand what
would
you're...
that be different than the federal code, or... I don't think that would be an issue.
Right, but Director Rasmussen, what I'm saying is I don't want to even intone that both are required to fall under this anti-bullying rule. If you create it or you distribute it, that should be enough. And I think you should be able to treat them separately. And when I see the and, I believe it's you have to meet both elements of that.
Well, I think you could change and to or without any problem. if that's the concern. You do not use and or in rule. If you say or, that's the same thing as and or.
Okay. Then
I believe if we go back to our, where I think we are still discussing a motion, let's go ahead and go back to, so that might be something that we can address.
After,
But
yeah.
yes, let's stick to this conversation directly on this motion. It looks like we have Member Green.
Then I would make a substitute motion, if that's in order.
That is in order. Go ahead.
And the substitute motion would be to just a point of inquiry. If I make the substitute motion and it's adopted by the board, does it preclude a discussion on the issues raised in Member Bogus's motion? Okay, then with that, I'll make the substitute motion, and that would be that the board amend line 147 to read, create. It says creation and distribution. Are we more comfortable with create and distribute? Okay, so, okay, creation or distribution. And basically, we're replacing the and with the or. Thank you.
Okay, let's make sure that this gets written correctly. Does that reflect your motion?
Yes, it does.
And is there a second? Second. Okay, we have a second. I know we have some microphones on. Let's go ahead and, is there anybody that would like to speak to this motion specifically? Okay, so the motion is that the board amend line 147 to read creation or distribution. And with that, let's go ahead and vote.
Lear's a yes. Oh no.
Looks like we have Davis and Earl. Okay, that passes unanimously. Let's go back to our motions. Okay, looks like Member Green, now we're ready to hear from you.
I was just looking up definitions between sexually explicit and the non-consensual intimate. I do feel that the non-consensual intimate wraps around more of what would fall underneath the bullying, in my opinion. Well, and also just by definition, it just refers to the sharing or distribution of sexually explicit nude or partially nude photos or videos of a person without their permission, including imaging initially taken with consent but later shared without consent, as well as images obtained without consent or even without the person's knowledge through methods like hidden cameras, phone cameras, or hacking, etc. And I just feel like in the dynamic of bullying, that seems to be how it's used in this realm. And the sexually explicit implies, I won't read that definition. I'll let you guys do that one. But I think that can happen also with, in moments of consent, but the difference is that it's shared outside of that moment. So anyway, I would probably support keeping the other language. I would like to learn more if maybe I'm off on my thinking though.
Okay, let's go back to the maker of the motion, Member Bogus.
So there's technically no motion on the floor.
Okay.
If it's okay, I would just comment. My biggest concern is, are prom pictures, girls with crushes, are those now considered bullying? Are we going to eventually, make illegal Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so from 8-year-olds? And it's a genuine question, because if this is where we're at and we use that language, that can be used in really nefarious ways.
Okay,
So
good.
I understand what you're saying, and I actually agree with you. My question is, how far is somebody with nefarious intent going to take that?
I guess I'd respond, thank you. I'd respond saying yes, absolutely. Any photo that is used to humiliate or bully, you know what I mean? Like prom photo, okay, I get a hold of, I keep picking on Joe, let's go somewhere else, right? But I get a hold of, let's say you get a hold of my prom photo and you're like, oh man, this is hitting the web, right? Yeah, if that's non-consensual, that could be a problem. It doesn't matter if it's intimate or not. It could come down into some other category, right? You can't use these photos, to what Jenny has said, to what Emily has said. You can't do this and start harassing or using it to beat up on somebody, for lack of a better term. So yeah, I think this still fits, and I think it still applies, if that makes sense. Prom photos, yeah, non-consensual. You can't just get those and start blasting them. And I would think that it would fall under some sort. I mean, because bullying is on there. If I'm using it, right, it would fall under single eye, right? If I'm taking that image, it doesn't have to be.
Okay, it looks like we have Member Green, and then it looks like Member Bogus is in the queue. Member Green.
Okay, well, I guess what I was going to say actually falls under line 148 then. Sharing a recording of an incident as described in that code. So, I mean, I would worry that, and I have been aware of when people are even, somebody shouldn't be friends with somebody else and then the picture is shared because they are friends, or they're getting made fun of because, or implied, or even to a level of bullying that takes place because they're getting teased that they have a crush on somebody or that they're dating somebody, and that image of them being in close proximity is used to bully a specific person. So I know that, I mean, even on the most not sexually explicit level of this argument, that type of picture can be circulated for those specific purposes. In that instance, does that fall under non-consensual intimate images? And I get to the maker of the motion, sure, or anybody else?
It looks like, yeah, and I don't know that we have a motion right now, but we're still having a discussion.
Oh, sorry.
All right, let's go ahead. No, you're okay. Well, go ahead, Member Bogus. Did you want to make a motion?
So
Then
I
you
would
can speak
just
to it.
remove the motion. There you go.
I don't know that we had a substitute motion. So did you want to speak to
Yeah,
what Member
I
Green
would make
had
that motion again. But with regard to Member Green, I think then in order for that to qualify, we need to remove the word intimate. So we've got, I think Joe made a very valid point early on, in that maybe these should be in 2 lines. Because what you're talking about is the non-consensual distribution of images for the purposes of bullying. But in that situation, that image would not be intimate. And so I see both points. My other concern is we're pushing a really fine line with the First Amendment here. And if, let's say, a young person posts on social media or Instagram, and all of a sudden that post is shared for the purposes of bullying, but they put it out there, did they inherently consent to the distribution for the purposes of bullying? I mean, we've got a logical conclusion, 50 permutations and 20 miles long. And we're in really weird space, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Member Bogus, it looks like we have Member Earl that would like to make it.
Yeah, so Representative Wilcox in this last legislative session ran a bill to deal with, and he calls it intimate images. If you go to age-appropriate instructional materials, here he adds the risk of sharing intimate images or personal information through electronic means. So the intimate images is, and I know he has been a advocate for making sure that we're educating our youth on the caution of, sharing images and that kind of thing. So that's the language there that he put into the child, in our child sexual abuse prevention area when they added that in, just an FYI.
Okay, and it looks like we were just looking up on Robert's rules. So since we had a substitute motion, we can't make the same direct motion. Is that correct? So.
Yeah, it has to be amended. I'm trying to get. Okay. May I, Chair? We're trying to get back on track here. We had a substitute motion. Now we're just kind of talking to the overall idea of this right here. The substitute motion substituted the one that was on here, Member Bogus's motion. It passed unanimously to move forward. It says somewhere, when a motion is substituted and the substitute is adopted, it means that the original motion has been amended and by replacing its text with the text of the substitute. The vote is then taken on the main motion as amended. That is in its substituted form. Now, I don't know, we could just be spending time talking about processes here. Is there a motion that we want to bring something forward here? Member Carey's substitute motion essentially it did replace and with or, so it had nothing to do with this non-consensual and sexually explicit portion. So I would do a chair's rule to keep things moving. If we want to amend the motion to say replace or make a motion to say non-consensual, intimate, replace that with sexually explicit, then let's get it on the floor. We can debate. But right now we have nothing before us. Okay. So you moved that, and then we started having this discussion. So I want to make sure it's official. So if that motion is moved, we'll get a second, and then we'll start the discussion again.
I would like to move it for the purposes of continuing the discussion.
Hey, I don't need a reason why.
Okay.
If you want to move it, let's move it.
I think we need to get to a better place
I'm
in this
ready to
space.
move it. Yeah,
Okay.
okay. The motion then is that the board strike non-consensual intimate on line 147 and replace with sexually explicit. So it's back on the floor. We have a second from Member Carey. And then, sorry. Is anybody on? Oh, well, we've got Member Bogus who's speaking to this motion, and then I've got you. Go ahead.
I don't know that I have anything more to say. I think we're in such tenuous space as this is currently written. And when our LEAs start making policies, I think we're in tenuous First Amendment space. I'm shutting up. I'm going to let you guys take it over.
Vice Chair Wood.
I'm just wondering if we have anyone from staff who can talk about this at a greater detail in terms of our prevention and what we're trying to do here. Yes, could if they have anything to add to the discussion.
Becca Ray, Prevention Specialist. So some of the discussion, it sounds like we are trying to address issues of cyberbullying, which cyberbullying is defined in code and in this rule. So that is to address the discussion of whether or not to include the intimate images. There was also a question of the sharing and recording of acts, and that's specifically to address cyberbullying as well. But I think if we refer to that definition, that should answer some of your questions.
Thank you. Member Reel.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your that answer, because I think that's really important. That part about cyberbullying versus bullying, I think that where it's defined is important to note. But also, idea is, what if we put both? Non-consensual, intimate, or sexually explicit?
I could be crazy.
Most likely.
Most likely.
You chose to be chair, so.
Fair. We are down on, what is that, VI? I had it on my screen. 7? So there's 6 others before that, and I believe that sharing images is not new. we're not inventing something right now. We're like, why have we not thought about this, right? I believe that this is covered under bullying, that every LEA knows what that means, and even cyberbullying, and could include hazing, right? I believe that it's in, that's what I'm saying. I believe that it's in there. I appreciate this additional clarity of creation or distribution of non-consensual intimate images. I appreciate the clarity in there, but I don't think this is new, and so I'm not. That's what I'm saying. We can keep adding to it. I think it's fine, but I do think that we've got eight things here, and it says which shall include a prohibition on these things right here, and there's going to be many more that are not listed, is what I'm saying. So, member Real, I don't mean to say, hey, don't add, or I'm just those are my thoughts. So if there's an amendment to the motion, happy to entertain it. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Bring it out. So please.
I'd just like to move this along. So I'm trying to find compromise here, and honestly, I hear the debates on both sides, and they both make sense to me. I think Member Bogus makes some really good points there, and I just think it's sort of like the best analogy I can give is in emergency management, you can plan as much as you want, but like every single scenario is different. So broad is better, but in this case, I can see arguments on both sides, and maybe it's fine to just point out both when LEAs are making their policies. All right, I'll make a substitute. To have it read sexually explicit or non-consensual intimate on line 147. And I wanted to also say that because of the cyberbullying versus in-person bullying, there's so much gray area, and every scenario will be different, that I do think broad is better when these LEAs are making policy, but I think at this point it's the best compromise I can come up with.
So the motion then is to, let's see, that line 147 read sexually explicit or non-consensual intimate. It's been seconded. Member Real. You want to speak to that additionally?
I already did out of line, so.
You rarely have the microphone. I mean, this is your shot. Hollywood's listening. Okay. Seeing no lights, let's put this to a vote. Member Lear?
Oh,
We didn't catch that, Member Lear?
now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think the non-consensual is the part of it. We had an experience a year and a half ago where there was a non-consensual image posted. It was neither sexually explicit or intimate, but it was non-consensual. So maybe we're struggling too hard with all the sexual words, and the point is non-consensual.
Member Lear, I appreciate your comments. We're in the middle of a vote that Member Real put a motion forward.
All right.
Let me, the motion then is that on line 147, it reads sexually explicit or non-consensual intimate in order to capture the concerns of all board members.
I got that. I'll just vote. I just made, and sorry it took me a while to get on there, but I just think we're over baking this. Thanks.
What was your vote, Member Lear?
I'll vote yay.
Thank you.
Or aye, or yes.
We'll take all three. That passes unanimously. Back to you. I think we've got Board Member Bogus.
I appreciate that, Chair. If I could move us to line number 294. I move that we remove the words "take positive restorative justice action" and replace it with the language "employ accountability practices." I move that we remove the language "take positive restorative justice practice action" and replace it with "employ accountability practices."
So the motion then is strike from line 294, take positive restorative justice practice action and replace with employ accountability practices. Okay, back to you, Member Bogus, to speak to that.
I just think I could talk for days, but this is where 609 went, and we need to be consistent. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, seeing no other lights, the motion then is to strike from line 294, take positive restorative justice practice action and replace with employ accountability practices. Let's vote.
Is it employee?
It should be
There's a no.
Thank you, Member Lear.
It should be what?
employ.
Employ, okay.
That passes 10 in favor, 1 abstention, 4 in opposition. The abstention coming from Member Davis, those in opposition from Member Reel, Member Lear, Member Wood, and somebody else. Member Bollinger. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Are we back
your
to
light
me?
is on. Yeah, I'm looking for it on this request, but it's on. Go ahead, Member Bogus.
Okay, I move, if I could take us to line 304. I would move that we insert the words "written, informed" after "obtain." So it should read "and obtained written informed consent from the student's parents."
The motion is to insert "written, informed" after the word "obtain" on line 304. We have a second? Speak to your motion.
Well, it's different than a phone call. I think a lot of parents do not fully understand what is going to happen with their child. And I don't know what kind of phone calls you get, but parents, before they consent to this, need to have a clear understanding of what restorative practice is going to be used, how it plays out, who is going to be present. And a lot of times when I have dialogued with parents about these situations, they said that they understood, but they did not actually consent. And their affirmation of understanding was accepted as consent, and they went through with it anyway. And so we need to make very sure that when we're going into this space, that parents are in the driver's seat. And I'll be done there.
I know I'm speaking too much here, and I should have.
Hey,
asked these
this
guys-
doesn't happen very often, so we'll let it happen, Chair Hymas.
Man, as a practitioner, please, let's call the LEAs. Please don't make me write a letter and wait for a response every time I need help with student behavior. That's right. I do the phone calls. I don't just take it upon myself. I know there's LEAs out there and school principals who are doing their best. We have policies, we have practices, we inform parents, we talk to them over the phone, we have meaningful conversations. I'd rather not on this one. Thank you.
Member Bogus.
So we're not talking about student discipline. You took us into a place we're not talking about. We're talking about, in particular, our code requires parental consent before being engaged in a quote restorative justice practice. That's there. Yes, I do, because we have schools abusing this, and unfortunately, we make rules for people who do dumb things, right? That's where we find ourselves a lot. But if it's not understood, it needs to be understood that you cannot use implied consent, you cannot use confirmation of understanding, that you have to actually consent to this, because, well, I would argue that often it is completely out of line what they're doing, but that's a debate for another time.
Chair Hymas.
Yeah, beginning at 303, right, B, if an LEA would like a student to participate in a restorative justice practice, which could be anything from an apology to a written letter to, monetary reimbursement. A student if an LEA would like the student to participate in any of those things, the LEA shall notify the student's parent of that practice, and we're saying, and obtain written consent from the student's parent before including the student in the process. So I've got a first grader who splashes water on somebody in the hallway. And instead of saying, hey, I need you to be mindful of your situation and maybe apologize for getting them wet, I'm saying, man, I'm not going to touch this kid. I got to get written consent from the parent before I ask if I can have them apologize, make them aware of their surroundings, right? Again, maybe a poor example, but we're dealing with quite a spectrum of children. So again, that's where I am.
All right, looks like we have Member Earl and then Member Bogus is in the queue.
So and this is where this gets a little bit crazy, because and when we had talked about previously restorative practices, restorative justice practice, this is saying restorative justice practice. My understanding, unless I'm completely wrong, that wasn't accountability practices. This was a very specific outlined program, because restorative justice practices is different, at least this is what I was told when we were in the spring. A restorative practice is different than a restorative justice practice. This has very specific connotations, very specific follow-throughs and stuff. This isn't just someone pushed me down on the playground, you need to go apologize to them. That's an accountability practice, and that would fall under, I guess you could say, restoring or restitution, but that's not, I don't know, someone help me. The restorative justice it's in law. It requires very specific provisions from what I remember. Am I wrong in what I'm saying? I'm just seeking, because both of them have justice added to it, so that it narrows the scope.
It looks like we have some staff that would like to help answer your question.
And if it's both of those, then we've got I don't think it was. When we asked about it, there was this umbrella, and then there was this spine in the umbrella, right?
Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
Tanya Albornoz, Prevention Coordinator. So in 53G-8-211, there is a definition of restorative justice program that this rule is referring to. And it says it means a school-based program or a program used or adopted by a local education agency that is designed to enhance school safety, reduce school suspensions, and limit referrals to law enforcement agencies and courts, and to help minors take responsibility for and repair harmful behavior that occurs in schools. So because it says a school-based program, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a program. It could be a program that's outlined by the LEA. So there is a spectrum of interventions that occur. Restorative practices are on the prevention side. Restorative justice is after an incident occurs, and they're trying to repair the harm that incident has created. So that could be a set of interventions or activities that the LEA defines is part of their restorative justice program. Does that make sense?
Member Earl, did that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's a program. Or is it a way of being?
Go ahead.
Again, it says adopted by a local education agency that is designed.
It's not just the playground incident. It's something that's adopted. You're doing a specific program related to it. It has more intentionality about it. It's not just, at least in my view, that's what I'm hearing, is it's a very specific practice that you've taken on in your community, and parents should be aware of that if you're using that. So.
Okay, it looks like we have Member Bogus is next, and Member Davis is in the queue. Member Bogus.
I don't know that I have anything to say.
Okay, are you just?
I think Member Earl said it all, and
Okay,
very well, mind you.
perfect. We will go to Member Davis.
I think you can adopt practices that are or are not in, some kind of published program. But again, restorative practices, restorative justice, two different things. But all of the pieces in the accountability practice are part of restorative justice practices in practicality where the rubber meets the road. So to Chair Hymas's point, that gets very tricky when you're helping a child make restitution for something that they have done, whether it be an apology or, they help do something together in the classroom, whatever it is, and there's no immediacy there because you got to call a parent beforehand. I mean, when I was a principal, I considered discipline as instruction. And so I didn't call a parent unless it was 2 times or more. There was a pattern because so much of it is just teaching on the fly as you're working with children. So, and as you're teaching, that one time take care of 90% of the problem. Like 10% of your kids are going to have a second time or more once they kind of learn this is how to treat other people. Anyway.
All right, I'm going to take back over because Member Bollinger wants to make a comment, and then we've got Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak to this idea of obtaining written consent, because I absolutely do believe that we want parental consent if we are implementing restorative justice practices. However, just the complication of getting written consent and the timeliness of these sensitive situations where we're addressing these hard topics and things that are really affecting how students are functioning in school, I would be against adding written consent just for the logistical reasons and the timing. I mean, to Member Davis's point, when you're an administrator and trying to get written consent from several parents to have this move forward can really make this last weeks and weeks. And when we're talking about doing interventions and helping address concerns, the sooner we can do it and the quicker we can do it, the better, so we can get back to our learning. So that's just my opinion on that addition.
Thank you. Member Carey.
Just two issues here. So I don't look at this as you want student A to apologize to student B. I need to write home and get a consent from the parents. I look at this as the school saying, look, these are the restorative practices we use at this institution, right? We require apologies. We require accountability. We require the students to get in a circle and confess their sins. Whatever their restorative practice may be, they list it. And then they send that to the parents and say, if your child attends this school, these are the things we do, and this is why we do them. To me, that's the notice. I don't think this is a permission slip every time that you do it. I think that would be onerous and unenforceable and just lead to a overall just not a good practice. So the way I interpret that, and I would ask the maker of the motion, but I look at this as, look, these are the sort of practices we have. Your child comes here, they may participate, in things like this, and then if you have a problem with that, let us know, and they can opt in or out at that point. That's the way I see this. And the written consent, I think that's important. Like just this morning in law and licensing, we were discussing seclusion, and we talked about what happens when you call home and no parent is there to take the call. And I look at this as very different because in that case, you can't predict the timing of the incident. Here, we're just getting that consent early on, and to me, it's a sign it once and you're good for the year. But again, I would defer to the maker of the motion. That was my understanding of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Davis.
I think Board Member Carey answered my question because it sounded to me more like an awareness, not a consent. Like, so if you don't get a consent from a parent, and sometimes parents just don't sign stuff, then if you have an altercation in the hall, it gets a little tricky for some of those just things that you do every day on and off as a principal as you're just trying to kind of manage and help kids.
All right, the motion then is, go ahead.
Is it a one-time consent, or is it, because that would influence whether or not I would make an amendment to the language. So I'm just looking for direction from the maker of the motion.
To the maker, Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. So a couple things with regard to that. One, it is in code that prior to a restorative justice practice, parental consent has to be obtained. And so,
Do you want that to take place every time, or are you saying they can waive that at the beginning?
so I believe that is in code. I read it as at the beginning of the restorative justice practice. And again, restorative justice practice is not school discipline. It's very different. As an example, there was an instance where a young lady was assaulted, and she was brought in to restore this relationship. This young man was brought in to restore this relationship. Eventually, she filed charges, and because his parents weren't notified, he had admitted to all sorts of stuff without legal counsel. And so when we are in this space and we are saying, hey, things are happening and we're going to restore this relationship, that boy should have had legal counsel. And that girl should have never been put in the position to restore a relationship with someone who had assaulted her. That just re-victimizes her. And so we are not talking about school discipline. We're not talking about the behavior matrix at the school, the intervention plan, the PBIS. We're not speaking about that. We're speaking very specifically, as Board Member Earl pointed out, at restorative justice practices. And in that case, I really feel like that young man should have had an attorney, or at least had a parent to say, no, my child's not going there until I'm sitting beside him. And that young girl should have never been put in that situation, especially without parental notification.
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah, Member Carey, go ahead.
Thank you. I believe me, I'm a firm believer in legal counsel. I think that the incident you referred to, the young woman would have been protected by the language in lines 300 to 302 that says a student, bless you, a student to whom an incident is directed is not required to participate in a restorative justice practice, blah, blah, blah. So if we're looking to strengthen that, I think we need to look at those lines. Here, I think we're casting a bigger umbrella to say the notice that you give, and again, it's like when you walk into a lawyer's office or a doctor's office, you give general consent to everything they do. Here, we're going a step further by saying, they have to itemize the practices that they perform at that school. They would do that, in my opinion, at the beginning of the year. But I would defer to staff. If we keep the language as is and it says restorative justice practice and obtain written and informed consent, is there an implication of how that is operated? So when you read that, is it defined? Board Member Baga said this is defined somewhere else. Does it automatically conjure up this notion that you can do it at the beginning of the year and grant consent, or is it imply that before you can perform the practice? And if there's no implication, I think we do need to, if we decide to proceed down this path, address that. Chair, if I can direct that to staff.
Yeah, Leah, you have a Dr. Voorhees. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Leah Voorhees, Deputy Superintendent of Student Achievement. So our thinking is similar to Chair Hymas's thinking, that it would be per time, not like you're suggesting annually, or that it would be incident specific. Is that?
Thank you.
Sorry, I meant to push my button, then I pushed something else into here because for some reason you gave me controls that I shouldn't have. So now we're voting on something. But let's clear that. Thank you, Kelsey. I know you should not have trusted me. The motion then before the board. Oh, I've got Member Green. I'm sorry. Member Green, go ahead.
I think that we're in a very interesting discussion right now because we are actually addressing something that I think has been simmering in the education realm for quite a few years now, and it is the concept of restorative justice practices, which can actually be branded with the capital P program. It is programs, it's disciplines, it's practices, it's formal belief systems that are funded by, organizations, at very high levels. So if we're not liking, if we don't like that idea, then maybe it's that word that we need to address itself, restorative justice practices. There's a whole political movement based around that, and we know it. Capital P, program. It's a program, capital P, restorative justice practice. If that's the case, which under that name I would argue it is, then I would agree with a written consent because that formalizes a very formal program and the practices that requires. So if we don't like it, then maybe we need to address restorative justice practices. If we like it, then I think we have to formalize it and require written consent, because then we start tipping into belief systems that exist in that program. Whether you like having to get that written consent or not from parents, if it's at that level, then I think it is required. So my question is that what lines 303 to 305 does? The way it reads and the way that it is being presented at all of these conferences and all of these teacher trainings and all of these curriculums, I would say, yeah, it is. It is a formal way to figure out controversial situations. So, I mean, I would support written consent as it stands because of the nature of the restorative justice practice program, capital P.
Member Carey.
Yeah, just to Board Member Green, I have no issue with the consent. It's just the frequency of that consent. So when I talked to the superintendents and other educators in my area, and I said, do you guys do restorative practice in your school? And their answer is yes. And I said, well, what do you do? And they said, well, if Johnny hits Susie, we ask Johnny to apologize. That's how they define restorative justice practice. If this were to pass, we're going to ask that teacher to reach out to the parent before they can effectuate that. So yeah, if there was a preset, we have them get in a circle, and I don't know what that circle's called, but restorative, okay, we look at restorative circle, yeah, that we need. But if we're going to say because our schools are defining this in a much broader fashion, and, when I was growing up, my parents didn't call, hey, you apologize if you do something wrong. They didn't refer to that as restorative justice practice. That was just the way you raised your kids. Today, a lot of educators and institutions call that restorative justice practice. So, again, I think that requiring that would be I don't even know if it's doable, but just given the frequency that would happen in a school. So I like a list that they can sign off on, because then if you see something on that list, say, I don't want my child participating in that, then they don't have to. But right now with the everyday, I just don't think it's sustainable.
I have three of you. I'm always, as you know, I've got my eye on the clock all the time. I do want to remind this board, as we've been talking about consent, this motion is adding for written. It's an additional. The consent is already in there, right? You still have to get consent. So the debate is, do we want to take the time to get written consent? And then let's not even get started on what written means, if that's in an email, a text, or letter, snail mail, right? So again, the motion before us is to insert written informed after obtain on line 304. With that, Member Bogus, you're next in line, and then I've got Member Green and Member Kelly.
Well, actually, sir, you actually articulated what I was going to articulate. We are already requiring consent, and that would be verbal consent. But I work in a district that is pretty heavy into restorative justice practices, and they do not view, or I should not say that out loud. I have never been trained in such a way that typical discipline is considered restorative practices. That is not training that I have been involved in. When I have been involved in restorative practice training, it is very, for the lack of a better way of saying it, it's very narrow in scope, and those practices should have written informed consent, because especially at the high school, middle school, and high school level, and my response to the frequency, if kids are assaulting kids every day in the hallway, that is a much bigger issue than informed consent. And so we're looking at a space where this shouldn't be happening all day long, every day. This should be very infrequent. These kinds of restorative justice practices should not be happening on the regular. It should be an auxiliary event, not an ongoing event. I can't imagine in a school of 100 kids that you would have more than one or two a week. And even at that, your larger schools, if your little things are taken care of, these things should not be happening. So I don't view this as a cumbersome thing to schools or school administrators.
Member Green.
And I guess off of that, I would agree that if we're employing a specific narrow scope of labeled under and practiced under the title of restorative justice practices, that is very specific in when that is triggered and used. So my question then would be, does this rule address when a line is crossed as far as interactions between students? And if you give the example of a kid throwing water, does that action cross into this rule being triggered for that student? And I don't know, like if it's just hey, we shouldn't do that, that's not nice, say sorry, then there's no written consent. But if it goes beyond and falls into a heavier level where we can categorize it as bullying as defined, then it's just the nature of it is just different anyway, and would require that as well. So anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Member Kelly. The motion before the board is that the board insert written informed after obtain on lines 304. Let's vote.
Learson, no.
Thank you, Member Lear. That motion fails. 9 against, 6 in favor. Those in favor being Member Brenton, Member Hall, Member Longacre, Member Bogus, Member Kelly, Member Green. Member Bogus.
Just have one final motion, and I'm sure you are going to be.
Is it non-debatable?
No.
Oh.
It is not one of those. On line 214, I would like to add a little I and a little II. 214. That says including Tinker versus Des Moines on the first I. And in the second little two I's, the Connick versus Myers and the Pickering Connick test.
All right, let's make sure we get that correct before we seek a second.
So the first one is Tinker versus Des Moines. Oh, I'm sorry. The second one is Connick, Connick versus Myers and the Pickering Connick test. And I will double check, Ben, to make sure that I read my writing correctly. Mm-hmm.
So the motion then is to insert after line 214, I including Tinker versus Des Moines, and then double I, Connick versus Myers and the Pickering Connick test. Is that correct, Member Bogus?
That is correct, but I think including would be up and the I would be right before Tinker, just to be written correctly, but I don't care. Whatever Ben says is good.
Okay, so do we have a second to this? Back to you, Member Bogus.
Thank you. So I think that when we remember free speech in schools, we often try to train our children to believe that they don't have all the rights they actually have. And so just a very clear understanding of Tinker versus Des Moines tells us that kids have a lot of First Amendment in schools. It also talks about the barriers of free speech in schools, that which is needed to maintain decorum, all of those things, the suppression of free speech, what warrants a suppression of free speech is in the Tinker versus Des Moines trainings. And for teachers actually are, they have pretty restricted speech as part of their employment as a government employee. And the Connick versus Myers, it's two N's, I believe, Ben, but I could be wrong. The Connick versus Myers SCOTUS ruling addresses that. And when it goes through the courts, they conduct what's called the Pickering Connick test. And I think that is really important in helping teachers understand not only when they speak, what kind of free speech they have, like if they speak on a public policy issue at a board meeting, they've got a lot of free speech there. When they are speaking inside their classroom, that's a whole other issue. And understanding the difference of the First Amendment between a private citizen and as an educator, I think is really important. And just putting those in there so that schools, teachers, students all have a very clear understanding of where we're at in this process is super important. Thank you.
Member Earl?
No. Just a question as far as writing rule. Do we normally cite legal cases in? I'm just asking, is that a common?
We're not citing it.
So this would be,
We're not citing
this would be that we are now training on these two cases.
Okay.
As you're thinking, I just going to speak briefly. Member Carey, I see your light. I speak briefly. I'm not ready to make a motion on two cases that I'm going to ask the state to train people on that I'm not even familiar with. So I'm just speaking against this right now. I'm sure it's good, but I'm not there yet. Member Carey, go ahead.
Yeah. So and Tinker Des Moines, that's the famous landmark case where the two teenagers wore the peace symbol, I believe, on their armbands, and the court ruled they were allowed to do that. Connick, and I'm not saying this satisfies your, I'm just saying general, right. Bring that guy back with the robe. So, it's my understanding that Pickering Connick is the test that basically said, look, as employees, even if you're in a school, you retain certain free speech rights. And that's been a long-standing free speech test for public employees in general and in education in particular. So the one thing I would point out here is that if we move forward with this, there needs to be a triple I, because I believe that the motion says, or the language here says, we teach the students, the teachers, and the parents. And so I see a case addressing the students' rights to speech. I see the Pickering-Connor test, which is the employees. I don't see a case that addresses the free speech rights of parents as outlined in our rule. Not asking, just saying like that, I think we would have to be addressed.
Yeah, go ahead, Member Bogus.
I think the First Amendment covers our parents.
It would also cover.
Well, and it would, but when the schoolhouse doors, when you walk through them, the Tinker versus Des Moines makes it very clear that you can suppress speech, but it has very clear parameters on when you can. And it's been, like you said, the landmark case for over 50 years. And when schools go too far, we see judgments, and those judgments cost the taxpayer. So I think that the First Amendment as the overarching thing covers our parents, but I do believe that these two are super important for our teachers and our students. And then I would just maybe kick back, Member Carey, do you have a suggestion for a landmark case? Because I know of district level case law, and I'm not an attorney, but I'm aware of district level case law. I am not aware of a Supreme Court case that addresses the parents' right to free speech in schools.
The only, Chair, if I may.
Please.
And I'm just speaking generally. So the reason that parents come to mind is that if I look at this, the one group that I think has really come under assault in terms of free speech has been parents, right? They're the ones trying to speak up and share their concerns, and, labeled as instigators, problems, domestic terrorists. Even one of the districts, they wouldn't even let parents speak at the board meeting until the legislature passed a law forcing them to do that. So I am concerned that that this doesn't contain, and yeah, I do think that because the rule, and what line is this in the rule? So because I thought it said something about educators, students, and parents. That's why.
Hey, Matt, can I speak when you have a minute?
Yeah.
I don't know how to raise. Thanks.
No, you're good. I got you in the queue. I've got Member Carey, are you? I know.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've got Member Reel, then Vice Chair Bollinger, and then Member Lear. Go ahead, Member Reel.
I'm just going to speak against this motion. I think we're taking this a little bit too far for our rule writing. I think we have to remember that our LEAs are talented, smart individuals that are writing their policies. I think that we don't need to give such explanation and detail in this legal way. I think it's overkill. I think it's not creating any more clarity whatsoever. And a lot of our LEAs have their own attorneys that can interpret and understand the law and understand all this past precedent and law that we've seen. So I'm speaking against it. I think that we're going down a winding tunnel with no end, and I'd like to move forward. So.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. I would also speak against this motion. I do think that it does become more prescriptive and oversteps our general oversight of education. The other thing I'm concerned about is that this is training not just of school employees, but of students, coaches, and volunteers. So we would expect then all of our volunteers to be trained on this. And I'm just thinking in practice what that looks like. Typically it's they do some online training type of piece. So what type of a burden this would put on to make sure that they're trained specifically on these two cases. So I would speak against this motion.
Member Lear.
Speaking as a person who's actually taught these legal concepts to teachers for 20 years, they are nuanced. There are many other cases that influence this. There's a case that follows Connick that actually narrows students or teachers' rights. So I think putting these in here is going to make this rule outdated in about 6 months. So I don't think it's necessary, and ditto what the rest of stuff that Sarah said. Thanks.
Thank you. So the motion before the board then is that on line 214, we insert including I, Tinkerverse Des Moines Independent Community School District 393 US 503, 1969, and double I, Connick versus Myers 461 US 138, 1983, and the Pickering-Connick test. Let's vote.
Lear's a no.
Thank you, Member Lear. That motion fails. 10 against, 5 in favor. Those in favor being Member Kelly, Member Brenton, Member Green, Member Bogus, and Member Carey. Seeing no additional lights, Member Carey.
Just two motions that I have on this rule. The first one would be lines 20. Well, let me start. Did the motion that I made yesterday actually get voted on, which was to
The motions that you made were that did go through were on lines 49 through 56-ish, that area.
And that was to change the language.
We added replaced with civil rights violations means violations outlined in the following federal laws. So then it had those.
And that motion passed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just going to lines 208 through 213. And the court has been very clear, and I'm talking about the Supreme Court, and Congress has been very clear in the groups that have these immutable characteristics that are given extra protection by the Constitution. And those are typically race, religion, sex, pregnancy, and Board Member Lear probably has the other two. But so when I read this rule, I see this catch-all of or other physical or mental attributes or conformance or failure to conform with stereotypes. I don't even know what that means in terms of, is there any limitation on that? So I would like to amend, I'm sorry, I'm speaking to the motion before I made the motion. So my motion is on lines 208 through 211, it should read, this language is already there, how bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, retaliation, and abusive conduct are prohibited based upon the students' or employees' actual immutable characteristics as identified in federal and state law. Except instead of and, I would put or. What? Oh, those immutable characteristics identified in federal or state law. Yeah, that would be the whole. Yes, sir. And I already spoke to it, Chair, so I don't need to go on.
Let's make sure it's correct, and then we'll seek a second. So you are, there we go. Ben's still working on it.
Yes, sir. And I know that needs a second, Chair.
Yep. So, okay. So the motion then is to amend lines 208 through 213 and insert after actual immutable characteristics as defined in federal or state law, and then strike the remainder of the language after the actual. It's been, the motion was made. The motion has been seconded. I believe Member Carey mentioned that the motion has been spoken to. Vice Chair Wood.
Should that be 208 through 212? 213 refers to the right of freedom of speech.
It should be. Let's change that.
Thank you.
Okay. How do you want to see it? What do you guys see? Are you asking for the actual text in the rule? Do we have questions? Are we ready to vote? Let me restate the motion, and if I don't see any lights, then we'll vote. So here's a light. Member Davis.
Isn't there something in federal law, I could be remembering wrong? Okay, this is embarrassing, but remember the movie Mask? You have to give a 504 plan because there's a perceived disability there. I just don't know if there's a problem taking out the word perceived somewhere legally.
Is that directed toward our AAG?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Through you to her.
AAG. Beal, please.
I guess the distinction would come down to, retaliation, hazing, abusive conduct, bullying, perceived versus am I bullying someone because I perceive them to be that way, even if they are not? If they fall under that characteristic, that's where perceived is a useful identifier, right? And as a principal, are you looking at this situation and I'm bullying Dr. Hart because I perceive her to be X and she's not actually X? That's where that distinguishment comes in.
Follow up, please.
So I don't know if this is for the maker of the motion or AAG Beal, but so then if someone perceives someone to be one of these things and in fact they are not, then is it now not bullying?
Personally, I would say it's still bullying based on those things. It's based on their their perception of it.
Does that answer your question, Member Davis?
I guess it just reads to me differently with the amendment, so I guess it seems like it would take that out. Someone was calling someone names of a, say, racial thinking, and yeah.
Member Carey.
Maybe this is helpful, maybe it's not, but if you're making fun of someone because you think they're Korean and it turns out they're Japanese, you're still bullying on the basis of race. You may have got the specifics wrong. So even if you think someone is a boy and they're a girl, the basis are those immutable those categories. So if you think someone is Muslim and they're not, but you bully, you're still doing it on the basis of religion. And so in my opinion, this would still apply.
Follow up, please.
That makes perfect sense. And I would agree with that. I just wonder then if we would need to take out students, apostrophe. Students, apostrophe, employees, apostrophe shows ownership of those things. It's prohibited based upon the students.
I'll put you in the queue, Member Lear.
Thanks.
If we took that out, maybe it'd work.
So you're saying you're potentially proposing an amendment to say, so it would read, how bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, retaliation, and abusive conduct are prohibited based on actual or immutable characteristics, and just remove. Is that we're just trying to get clarity here?
I would just say based upon character. I don't know. You all, I just, based upon all of the list that's in the federal law, can you just say based upon that list, and then whether it's real or perceived, it's not the student's race. It's any language that would pertain to that, even if the student doesn't actually have that thing.
We've got member Lear in the
It would be the
queue.
basis of race in general.
All right. Okay, is that directed towards your, go ahead.
And my issue is with the expansion of what has typically been very predefined and set categories. And we've gone through this with several rules. And I think that those protections, those special protections are reserved for individuals in those groups. So when we open it wide open to say, or anyone with a physical or mental attribute or conformance or failure to, there's no definition for that. To me, it's anything. And so that's why I'm saying, no, let's go back and say, if it's these things, we're reserving this rule for individuals who fall into this category, not necessarily somebody dresses up and goes to school and they insist on doing that. Well, that's nonconformance. And
I've got member Lear in the queue here. Member Lear.
Are you ready?
I think so. I'm getting some side conversations, but they're clearing up. Go ahead, member Lear.
I can't tell from what I see on the screen if member Carey is proposing taking away the laundry list and substituting it with immutable characteristics. Is that true?
So it would say immutable characteristics as defined in federal or state law. So it's just consolidating them as defined.
And taking away the laundry list. And I would suggest that that doesn't work for me. Characteristics that are listed are not immutable. Sex is not immutable. Disabilities can be temporary. They're not immutable. Those are the two that immediately come to mind. But religion doesn't have to be immutable. So I think you're doing away with a lot of those characteristics if that's what he intends to do, with using a not very well understood, more difficult word. So I wouldn't support this.
Thank you. Member Carey.
Member Green had also pointed out some concerns with that word. So I'm happy to amend my own motion if possible to even bring more specificity to this.
Yeah, an amendment is in order, yeah.
And that would be, let's strike immutable characteristics and the word actual, just so it reads, this language is already there, how bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, retaliation, and abusive conduct are prohibited based upon race, national origin, sex, disability, and religion.
Usually gender is used instead of sex.
I'm an old-fashioned guy, so I prefer well, that doesn't sound right. So we'll just keep the,
That's not an excuse, Joe.
So the amended motion.
You're setting me up, Ben. What? So just repeat the whole thing? Okay, yeah, I apologize. So this language is already there, how bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, retaliation, and abusive conduct are prohibited based upon race, national origin, sex, disability, and religion. And the rest would be struck. National origin, sex, disability, and religion.
And one more thing, Matt.
Yes, let me just make sure, Member Lear, that we have this amendment in order and seconded so we can move on this discussion. Is that okay? I've got you in the queue, though. You're up next after we have Member Carey speak to his motion. Thank you.
Sure.
So from what I'm seeing, there's an amendment to the amendment, and that is to, instead of having immutable, it would remove additionally. Man, this is all over. I know you're trying. I'm not blaming staff. I'm blaming me. I'm sorry. That sounded bad. I'm just trying to follow. I think we're removing students or employees and putting prohibited based on, and then based upon race, color, national origin, sex, disability. I think you had, did you have religion in there somewhere?
Yes.
And religion is in there. And I apologize, Member Lear. I know it's difficult when you sit in silence and don't know what's going on, but we're just getting this motion put together. We still got you in the queue.
Yeah, disability, I would, yeah. It's or, it should all, yeah, or disability. I did, thank you. I did, Board Member Booth, just have race, but if they're both federally required, then, and that's why, yeah, so color is also required. So Ben, if you, yeah, well, you were, okay, thank you. Thank you, Member Booth.
So the motion, or the motion to amend the amendment is after based upon, insert race, color, national origin, sex, religion, or disability. And then strike the remainder of the language. That's the motion to amend. So do we have a second for that? Second. We have a second for that. Do you want to speak to this motion, Member Carey?
I think I already have, but thank you, Chair.
Okay, Member Lear.
Just so Member Carey is aware, Title IX definitions say that sex includes sexual orientation and the other, well, gender, but the other one that Member Carey was trying to get rid of.
Point of order. Go ahead, Member Bogus.
We've got to keep it to the issue. She's implying intent, and Robert's rules clearly says you cannot accuse someone of intent. You have to keep it to the issue at hand. And so I would just ask that we keep it to the issue at hand.
And I apologize. I was not intending that. I was just saying, so I had no intent. I was just saying that there is a definition where sex includes the other two that are being eliminated, just so we're aware.
Okay. Thank you. So the motion to amend the amendment is that the board amends, or sorry, that after based upon on 208 to 212, insert race, color, national origin, sex, religion, or disability. Strike the remainder of the language. Let's vote. Member Lear?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, you say voting? Yes, I'm a yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Let's go back to the original amendment. Remember that the one we just passed was an amendment to an amendment. So let's piece this together. Well, I guess I could ask, hey, Member Carey, was that an amendment or was that a substitute motion? Read. That's what I want to hear. Okay. So, I know I should have been like, was that an amendment or Okay. So, because now we don't have to vote on the same thing twice, I had misunderstood what was going on here. That is a substitute motion, and so that is now part of rule that passes. I'm going to go, I know Member Carey, for the board's information, and again, apologies, looking at the clock, and we're going to have some discussions of what's coming up, but there was a motion made yesterday that was tabled along with the rule itself that we have not addressed, and I would like to, because it was made and never resolved, remind or bring this back up to the board. The motion to amend was made by Member Carey, seconded by Member Earl, if you remember, that the board strikes lines 49 through 52 and replace with the following language. Civil rights violations means violations outlined in the following federal laws. So that motion is before us. I'd like to bring it before us now, bring it back before us so that we can tackle this before voting on a final rule here. So is there any additional discussion to that motion that we had discussed yesterday? I'm not seeing any. Let's cue that up for a vote. Did we have something inaccurate in there? Is this the original in front of us and the one in the document is inaccurate? Is that what I'm hearing?
Because it was lines 53 through 56.
49 through 52. So it says strike lines 49 through 52 and replace with the following language. Civil rights violations mean violations outlined in following federal laws. That's what I have. I'm going to, I know time is crunch. I want to get this right. Can we take 2 minutes? Member Carey, can you go visit with staff and make sure we got it? Okay. Okay, so this is it right here. Can we, and then 49 through 56 that's on the screen, is this what's currently in the rule that we're looking to replace, to amend? I'm sorry. Okay. So, with this, it would, instead of saying for the purposes of this rule, civil rights violation means, it would just say civil rights violation means. Is that accurate? Yes. Okay. So once again, before we go into voting, the motion then is to amend lines 49 through 52 and replace with the following language. Civil rights violation means violations as outlined in the following federal laws. Member Bogus.
I believe the word that we want is strike, that the board strike lines 49 through 52 and replace.
Yeah, I don't care. It's going to be the same effect. Let's cue this up for voting. This voting is open. Member Lear?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, Member Lear was a yes. Did we get her, Sarah, did we get her recorded? Okay. Okay, that passes unanimously. Member Carey?
I move to strike line 215.
Motion to remove or strike line 215.
Yes,
You
sir.
can see that on your screen. Is there a second? Yes. It's been seconded. Back to you, Member Carey.
Yeah, so safe digital citizenship, I don't see that we've defined that anywhere. And when I just did a general Google search, there are way too many definitions and interpretations of what a safe digital citizenship means. And I think it's too ambiguous, and the ambiguity doesn't provide any guidance. Therefore, I would move to strike. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Reel?
I think we may, Chair, I think we may have a definition. Well, I mean, we teach, this is part of our standards. Member Earl, Member Green, and I went through a lot of the safe digital citizenship in our CTE courses. So I'm not sure if it is defined or if staff know, but it is something that we use in our standards and teach our students. There's an entire course on it.
Thank you, Member Reel. Can we ask staff why this was added, or maybe was this in committee? I'm not sure. Do we know why this was added? And I don't think anybody's saying, yeah, we need to get rid of safe digital citizenship. I'm sure it's going to be, yeah. Oh yeah, never mind. I mean, overall, we're yeah. Yeah, Leah, thank you.
Leah Voorhees, Deputy Superintendent. It is referenced in R277495, and then it is also in code, which we're trying to find the reference for you right now.
Please, Leah, let me get your mic going. There you go.
Thanks, Chair. 53G71202 defines digital citizenship as the norms of appropriate, responsible, and healthy behavior related to technology use, including digital literacy, ethics, etiquette, and security.
Will you read that code one more time?
Sure thing. Digital citizenship means the norm.
Sorry, the code.
Oh, the code, sorry. 53G dash 7 dash 1202.
And what section? Do you have a section, subsection?
1A.
Oh, yeah, there it is, right on top. Thank you. 1A. Let's get, I know, we'll decide later. Yeah, Member Carey, go ahead.
Then my motion would be a safe digital citizenship as defined in 53G-7-1202, subsection A, subsection 1, subsection A. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Voorhees, for tracking that down.
Is there any objection to adding this to this motion? No objection. We're going to move forward as this is the motion then, that the line 215 would read safe digital citizenship as defined in 53G-7-1202, section 1, subsection A. It's been seconded. There are no lights. Let's vote.
Lear's a yes.
Thank you, Member Lear. That passes unanimously. We are back, I believe, to our main motion that reads somewhere. The board approve R277-613 LEA policies and training regarding bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, retaliation, and abusive conduct. Draft 1 as amended on second and final reading. Let's vote. Member Lear?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes 14 in favor, 1 in opposition. That opposition coming from Member Bogus. That takes care of one item. Can we get a what? A round of applause? Yeah, we need one, huh? All right, board members, here's where we are. We still have 2 items that came out of yesterday's agenda, and we also have an executive session that we need to step back into. I did ask Superintendent Hart if R277-726 statewide online education program amendment and R277-400 school facility emergency and safety amendment, if those were time sensitive. They said that it could wait till next month. Of course, it's up to this body to decide that. And so if there's somebody who says, I need to handle this right now, I'm not trying to defer either way, but let's take care of it. If not, I'd entertain a motion to push these to next month's agenda. Member Kelly.
I will make a motion to move R277, which ones are they?
726 and 400.
726 and R277 400 to the September board meeting, full board meeting.
That'll work. Okay, we've got a motion, we've got a second. Opposition to this move? We have a question. I think we could just put it on the full board agenda and leadership could chair that unless you'd like it to. I mean, it doesn't matter to me if it.
This came out of committee.
That's
but I want
fine.
to end the committee motion.
Can I be reminded where 726 came from? Finance, and what about 400? Both from finance? Okay. School facility emergency and safety. So both are from finance. So, yeah, so the motion is, and if it's okay with the board, leadership will just make that. We'll put it under finance as a separate finance agenda. But the motion before the board is to move agenda item, move R277-726 and R277-400 to the September full board meeting. Is there any objection to this? Member Lear, any objection?
No.
Okay, that's moved then. Let's prepare for a closed session. I will take a roll call vote once I have a motion, and the motion is that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing any of the following: a person's character, competence, or health.
I move that we go into closed session.
You sitting by, you're supposed to say so moved. You've been sitting by Christina and. Okay. Thank you, Member Booth. Is there a second? Let's do a roll call vote. We have, Member Bogus. Yes. Yes. Member Booth. Member Booth, yes. Member Brenton. Member Davis.
Yes.
Member Earl. Yes. Member Green. Yes. Member Hall. Yes. Member Longacre. Yes. I'm a yes. Vice Chair Bollinger. Yes. Vice Chair Wood. Yes. Member Carey. Yes. Member Reel. Yes. Member Kelly. Yes. Member Lear.
Yes.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, let's take 5 minutes as we get set up.
You okay?
Board members, we are back live. I'd seek a motion to come out of executive.
Now we come out of executive session.
Second, let's do a roll call vote. Member Bogus? Yes. Member Hall? Yes. Member Booth? Yes. Member Brinton? Yes. Member Davis? Yes. Member Earl? Yes. Member Green? Yes. Member Bollinger? Yes. Member Longacre? Yes. I'm a yes. Member Kelly? Yes. Member Carey? Yes. Member Lear? Is she okay? I don't blame her. Member Reel? Yes. And Member Wood? Yes. Okay. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make a motion that the board appoint Dr. Molly Hart as interim USDB superintendent effective immediately through the end of the 2025 calendar year.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Member Carey.
It was my understanding that the motion was going to read up to the end of 2025.
Apologies, up to the end of the 2025 calendar year. Thank you for that correction.
Yeah. Thank you. So the motion before the board is that the board appoints Dr. Molly Hart as interim USDB superintendent effective immediately and up to the end of the 2025 calendar year. Let's vote. That passes unanimously with one absent. Member Carey.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.